Where's my mouse? Okay. There we go. It was good. How's yours? My day was good. I kind of slept for like 20 hours. I'm not even joking. I was gonna stream yesterday, but then I ate a lot of food and like I knocked out at like 8 p.m. I knocked out at 8 p.m. and I woke up at like 4 a.m. in the morning. I woke up at 4 a.m. in the morning and then I stayed up until like, I don't know. I was like up until like 9 a.m. And then I fell back asleep and then I just woke up like, I don't know when I woke up. Not that long ago. I woke up in the afternoon. Yep. I can't help it. I think my sleep schedule, like I just naturally wake up in the afternoon. But it's been pretty good. Pretty good so far. Yo, Peter. Peter. Do I look like a Peter? Do I look like a Peter, huh? I feel like Peter is such a terrible name. Oh my god. Okay, Mom is like trying to come up with like pet names for me. And you know, Mom, you were telling me like when you told me that my name should be what is it, Seal? It cracked me up so bad. So funny because when I was younger, my brother used to treat me like a seal. Yep. My name's Peter. Oh my god, Crimson! I'm so sorry. I take it back. It's a beautiful name. It's a great name. I love the name Peter. Peter is a great name. I love it. It's a beautiful name. My mom's name is Peter. Too late, it damages that. I'm sorry. I didn't know. Peter's a great name. Peter. I'm gonna name my kid Peter. I love it so much. Yeah. That's terrible. Don't. Okay, I won't. Peter. Okay, what chapter are we on? Chapter 4? I think you only need 4 and 5 left. I'm so sorry. See, now I feel bad. I feel so bad. Oh, Peter's a great name. I love it. Wait, did she cut her hair? Her hair is short. Start episode 4. Oh my god. Okay.
Previously on The Walking Dead.
Did she cut her hair with a knife? The buns?
How am I supposed to raise a child?
She did? I don't remember that from the last
wasn't
episode.
truthful when I came across y'all at the lodge. Now folks are dead, and
Oh
I
wait,
can't
did she
help
do
but feel
it?
I'm to
Are we
blame.
gonna cut her hair this episode?
Fucker.
No! Stop me! Kenny!
Oh, must be another game, I think.
When you cover yourself in their smell, rub the walker guts all over you. They can't tell you from one of them. You just have to keep calm and make sure you're
Oh
good and
yeah, I
covered.
cut off. I cut off
Go on.
that one
You don't
lady's
need to see
hand.
this.
I remember. Oh god.
Let's go.
That's not the Kenny I know in there. I thought I could save him.
Uh-oh. These are my choices. Also, you're good, Shan. Just don't bring me pumpkins. Okay, I won't. I won't. I'll bring you melons instead. Wait, why pumpkins? Do you have a bad experience? Telltale Games presents in association with Skybound Entertainment. Holy! Wait, she's dead!
Serena? No! Get it! Serena! You can't die. I won't let you die.
What?
You have to move. There's too many.
Come on, babe. Kenny!
She's dead, man.
Leave us alone!
Penny, we have to go.
Get
Come
the
on.
fuck away from us! It's your goddamn fault. You're gonna go like Kenny!
Wait! This is how it
Won't be
starts?
left alone again. We're gonna leave.
Is it actually my fault?
Kenny! I don't care what these fuckers are saying. You're gonna be fine.
She's going to turn. You can't save
No.
her. Please.
Wait!
No.
Please, don't let
Is this
her
a
kill
recap?
you.
No, this is the start of episode 4. I cut off her arm.
She's gonna turn, man. You gotta let go.
No.
I'm not gonna kill her. No. I'm not doing it. No. Wait, I have to do it. Oh God. I have to do it or else I die. No, that's messed
She's
up.
gonna turn, man.
That's messed
You gotta
up.
let go.
No.
That's
no.
messed up. Okay. Oh my God. That's so messed up. Can't even remember that. Oh my God.
What the fuck did you do?
What the hell is going on?
Why? Why?
I'm sorry. I had to do it. I don't want to lose you. Please, Kenny.
Wait, this is so mean.
Kid?
Okay, Kenny. Okay, Kenny. You're acting like you didn't just do that to Lily's dad. This is messed up. Wait, this is how it starts? This is so brutal. Oh my God. I was not paying attention.
Going after Sarah.
No, that's so mean.
Kenny.
You know, oh, that's so mean. Solid stars. Oh God. Cute. Okay. You good, Clementine? You good? Okay, I remember Sarah ran away. We're gonna be quiet. Sarah ran away. Kenny is being an ass. Oh! Luke ran.
Anybody?
I know. What do we do? Luke was with me, but
We can't stay here, Rebecca. We need to keep moving.
Yeah, we need to keep moving. You got this. I'm a like thing for the like from Sandy. Thank you.
we're still moving toward the hardware store. We can make it out if we stick together.
Wait,
I'm glad you're here.
is this the part where she gives birth?
Watch each other's back.
Are you okay to keep
Wait,
No other way.
am I gonna have to birth her? Oh my God, am I gonna have to birth her child?
We need a clear path to the trees.
Oh God, and it's only gonna be me and her.
Out somewhere.
Oh God, please. Oh God. Oh.
Clem, we've got to hurry.
I can't. Where can I go? Where can I go? Wait, I'm looking. Okay, hold on. Let me try again. Hold on, it's okay. Am I not quick enough?
I can't find anybody.
I know. What do we do?
Oh.
was with me, but
We can't stay here, Rebecca. We need to keep moving.
We need to keep moving.
look, the walkers are still moving toward the hardware store. We can make it out if we stick together.
Damn.
Glad you're here. We can watch each other's backs.
Are you okay to keep moving?
No other way out of this.
Then why you gotta be the little kid and the pregnant lady together? Goddamn.
We need a clear path to the trees. Maybe they're thinning out somewhere. Do you see any openings? Anything?
There.
Okay.
Damn it! Go back! Go back!
Go back!
Jane!
Thank God.
Stop. Relax. You need to walk slowly. You'll be fine.
Slowly, okay.
I can't do this. You have to help.
No, you have to do this! Just
We
follow
can't
her!
come together like this. It's better if we spread out. You two will be fine.
No, you don't understand. Just
I'll stay close and watch out for Rebecca.
Your choice.
Yes, stay with the pregnant lady. I think she's gonna give birth. I remember last stream, so she was like, she's gonna die. Oh, somebody said she dies while giving birth. So,
We'll have to push through that
Yeah.
cluster of walkers.
there's too many.
We'll make a cow catcher.
a cow catcher?
Just
What's the cow catcher?
Okay, just tell me what to do.
There. That one looks light enough to carry. I'm gonna get on the far side of her. I need you to get her attention.
Okay.
Hey, over here.
Not gonna bite anybody
Okay.
now, Follow me.
Wait.
Stay
It's kind of
close.
hot.
If you fall behind, I can't come back for you.
Okay. Don't fall behind. Call of the dead bird. Where the baby's already infected. Oh no! No, no, no! That's terrible. I feel like a zombie baby is scary. So scary. I don't know. I have a feeling zombie babies are just like they run super fast because they're small.
Let's go.
But like, if she gives birth, we could tell which baby it is, huh? If it's a white baby, then goddamn Carver got strong genes. My goodness. Episode 4, Amid the Ruins. Okay, so far we're like separated from everyone else. Are you okay?
Is everything all right?
No, I'm not alright. But I'll be a lot better once we get with the others. I need to make sure everyone else made it out. Luke, Sarah, Kenny. God damn it. What if they...
Damn. Okay, was cutting off her hand terrible?
If they
I feel
aren't,
like I shouldn't
nothing
have
to do
cut
about
it off.
Don't even say things like
I regret it a little
Fine.
bit. It's okay.
Jesus. I don't even know if we're safe. What if the herd is still following us?
We're fine.
It's been quiet, but who knows?
We'll watch out for
We'll
each
watch
other.
out for each other.
So long as we keep up a good pace.
I know. Just, I'm going as fast as I can. I know I should feel glad that we escaped, but I just can't stop thinking about the others. How could I leave Alvin behind? It was stupid.
What was? Escaping?
Look, I know we all agreed to use the herd to get out, but maybe we should have been more patient. Come up with something better.
It worked.
If you can call that working, we could have... I don't know.
The
plan worked. We got out of there. Most of us.
Look, I know that some of your people didn't make it, but Carver was crazy. Staying would have only prolonged the inevitable. I'm just
Carver?
saying that if people
But
hadn't panicked,
I hardly
things might have
even
turned
know
out better.
her.
Of course. We panicked. We
Okay,
were
I say that
scared.
every
The
single
plan
time.
was good. The execution was the messy part.
That sounds an awful lot like you're saying it was their fault.
What? No, that's not what I'm saying. Just
Uh-oh.
I have to stop. I'm sorry. I don't want to slow us down. Can I just have a minute?
yeah. Take a minute.
Thank you.
Uh-oh. Is she gonna give birth right there?
Alvin was supposed to be here for this.
Is Alvin...
He's dead is what he is. Thanks to that fucking madman back there.
Rebecca, are you going to be okay?
Uh-oh. I don't think she is. She's not saying anything.
What are you going to do with it?
What do you mean by that?
Sorry. Just taking conversation. There was nothing.
No. What do you mean by that? Do with what? My baby?
I'm just looking at the worst case scenario. You and Clem won't be able to raise a baby by yourselves. Not out here. I just mean it's going to need food and, you know, other stuff.
Yeah. And?
I'm not gonna say anything. I'm not gonna say anything.
There are just some helpless things in this world. And you can't always protect them.
And you assume I won't be capable enough.
Oh!
Just because you're some angry loner who doesn't care about anyone but herself
The
doesn't
ladies are
mean
fighting.
you know better than me.
Hey, I've seen it before. Back when it started, me and my sister, we
What?
were...
She died?
Oh!
I don't need your pity.
You don't have the right.
Jane!
Shit, I didn't mean it. Shit.
Jane, wait.
Oh.
Damn it.
Damn, Rebecca. Rebecca needs to, like, learn how to shut her mouth. I was just saying, you know, when I first met Rebecca, she was all,
We can't just sit
you
here
know,
doing nothing.
mean girl.
I'll be here soon.
Holy shit.
It had been so long. We were starting to worry no one else would make it.
Well, besides.
Rebecca might have the baby soon. She needs someplace safe to do that.
Oh no. Soon? Soon?
That's what it seems like.
This memorial works fine as a meeting spot. No way we can stay here long term.
I told you.
Oh my God.
That's why we're waiting. And as soon as everyone else gets
Should I
here,
go talk to
we'll
Kenny?
figure something out.
You wanted to leave without
Is
us?
Kenny gonna kill himself? He's holding a gun.
I wanted to go out
He's
and
holding a
find
gun.
What does Kenny want to do?
I tried to talk to Kenny. He flipped out on me. Started yelling. Scary shit.
I know he probably didn't mean it, but it was scary.
Oof. Oof, no, Clementine, you look so sad.
What? You think he's gonna shoot you?
The way he is right now? I don't know. Maybe. He's
It's
not
my
acting
fault. I
right.
should go talk to him.
I should go talk to him. This is my fault.
Hey, you did what you thought was right. That's all anyone can do in that situation.
Oh God.
Sarita, God, wherever you are, please forgive me. I can't be alone again.
No, Kenny! Is Kenny
Hi,
gonna kill
Kenny.
himself? No!
You think I don't know what y'all are whispering about over there? What's wrong with Kenny? Why's Kenny acting that way? Do you think Kenny's okay? It's all I hear from anyone anymore.
Oh my God.
Kenny, I'm so sorry about Sarita.
Sorry, huh? Well, that's nice of you, seeing as this was your fault in the first place.
Okay, okay.
Why are you acting this way?
Take one wild guess, Clementine.
Okay, Kenny. Now you're just a hypocrite.
I tried to save her.
You think because you're a little girl, you can just get people killed and no one will care? That because you're
Okay.
sorry, it'll all magically go
Okay,
away?
Kenny, you're a hypocrite. You acting like you didn't just kill an
How it
innocent
works.
father. Okay. He's insane. Did he snap? Yeah,
For
he's
the last
snapping at
time,
me.
Just get the fuck out of here and leave me alone.
He is
I'm
insane.
crazy just sitting here
Oh
not
my
doing
god,
anything.
Kenny.
Just give it time, Mike. It's still early.
You know what? He's fine. You know, we're
Go.
I'm fine with leaving Kenny to die.
And he's
It's
really
okay.
mad at me.
Ah! Oh my god.
I can't just
It's that
expect him to
Hovey.
bounce back.
Welcome in, Hovey. Welcome, welcome. How are you?
At least
You
you
put
tried.
this shout out.
Doesn't exactly help us
I
figure
love
out what we're gonna
butts.
do now. We got no food, no water. It's getting damn cold, and we're losing daylight fast.
When the others get back, they'll know what to do. Luke will have a plan.
We thought Kenny would have a plan.
Mike, Bonnie.
Mike's got a point. You can't just keep sitting around waiting.
Yeah.
Things are difficult
Fucking
enough
might
right
be.
now, and soon you'll have a baby
Ooh.
on your hands too.
See.
What? Suddenly you're pretending to be concerned?
Seeing you people floundering the minute things don't go according to plan has just got me on edge, all right?
Rebecca
Okay.
needs a safe, warm place to have her baby. Maybe we should keep moving and find one.
You can rest for a few minutes. Me and Clem will scout ahead and double
Okay.
back. Just make sure you're ready to move when we get here.
Alright, Clementine. Clementine's the girl boss.
Listen, Rebecca, if anything goes wrong here, you got something to protect yourself?
I've got this. You don't think I'd need to...
I don't know, but you better keep that close.
Oh yeah.
Come on, Clem.
Okay, I kinda hate Kenny now. He's acting like such a... I don't know. I mean, I understand. You know, low-key my fault. But like... He's acting like... He didn't just do the same thing. Last episode. Oh, last season. Crazy.
Look, I'm gonna level with you. There's no real point in scouting ahead. And you should know that finding your friends, that's a shot in the dark.
It
You might be
didn't
right.
look good. You're probably right.
Yeah. So, I wanted to talk to you, away from them. You wouldn't have made it this far if you weren't smart, but I still...
Hey yo! Oh my god!
just
Is
gotta
that
warn you.
Ryu? How are you, Ryu?
That
Oh
group
my
is
god!
cracking. I've seen it before, and
How are
well,
you? It's been
a
a
lot
while.
of
How's your
times,
day?
it's better to be on your own.
Yeah, what the fuck? Your model has changed? Yeah, I have a new,
I know you see what I'm talking
new
about.
outfits.
You don't want to be here when they start turning on each other, turning on you.
You know, bad stuff happens to you when you're alone, too.
But your odds are better.
There's nobody to watch
She's not
your
a
back.
goat anymore. I am. I'm
When
still a
something does
goat.
happen,
I'm still a goat.
There's nobody there to help you.
Stole my horns. You stole
How
them.
much help is Kenny gonna be? What he's going through? He's more of a liability than anything.
Oh my goodness.
And Rebecca's
She graduated.
situation is not
I
making
did
things
not
better.
graduate. I can still change. All
You
right.
get enough broken people together, and all you're gonna get are broken decisions.
Rebecca's just worried about her baby. I mean, wouldn't
Show
you
me your
be?
model. Hold
I
on.
wouldn't bring it.
I will show you the model. Hold on. See, this is the full body. Okay, full body Shinobi. Okay. Yeah, I could take off the coat. Cute, cute. Cute, right? Cute. I could also switch my hair. See, short hair Shinobi. With the coat. Cute, cute. Oh my god. Right? That's basically it. I could switch it. I could get like long hair with like my old outfit. Oh my god, it's so cute. Today we're gonna miss my new outfit. That looks sick. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right.
Hid into this
How are
world.
you?
And like you said,
Also, I'm
it's her
doing
baby,
great. I'm doing
not
great.
mine or yours.
God damn.
For
Oh my
what it's
god,
worth,
is that
I like most of
first
the people in the
name
crew,
John
but
Cantators?
groups fall apart.
Welcome in. How are you,
People get
John?
killed.
How are you? Long hair look better? Oh, you know, that's what everyone
why
says.
did you bring me
Everyone
with you?
said I look better with long
I'm just
hair.
trying to give you the tools you need to make it, if you want.
And I get it. I
Like your
get it.
jacket.
I see.
It looks warm.
I also
but
agree.
a walker will bite right through that.
I'm doing amazing.
My
That's
sister
great.
Jamie
That's
had to get another one.
great.
Wish I still had it. You could've.
Oh, I could have. So I'm playing The Walking Dead. It's been so good.
I always wanted a sister. I used to make my babysitter Sandra play a game that we were secret sisters. It was stupid kid stuff.
Oh, Clementine.
You know, being a big sister.
I don't know.
is-
She still looks like a nerd to me.
It's funny.
Says you.
It's really easy to be mean.
Oh?
You know.
You know
Other
what?
toys,
I would rather
make
you
fun of
call
a
me
bad
a
haircut,
dork than
give
call
her
me a
bad
nerd.
haircut On purpose.
Because
I mean, I did put the
nerds
gun
are
there.
intelligent,
I
and
figured I
that is
should
not
get
who
it
I
out.
am.
I don't even know why.
Is that really what it's like having a sister?
No. It's
Yes,
not all bad.
it's me.
But
I just ate and feel very sweaty.
what could I do?
Oh,
She thought I was her best friend.
oh,
I
sweaty.
couldn't go unpunished.
What did you eat? What did you eat?
Every summer we'd go to this amusement park in Virginia. But the best part wasn't the rides. It was that nobody knew us there. And I'd pretend we weren't sisters.
Oh,
Just friends.
I do that to my own sister. Whenever anybody asks, like, "Oh, is that your sister?" I'm like,
Jackpot.
"No, that's my brother's sister."
But these walkers got some good stuff.
Oh, let's search them.
Yeah, we should check them out.
But you know why, right?
She's so mean.
Only
Bro, I
because
had
we're
some
fresh.
bush ass spaghetti and grilled cheese.
Take a look.
Spaghetti!
Old walkers are a waste
Ugh,
of time.
I don't
They're
like
holding
spaghetti.
credit cards and busted
I
old
don't like
pagers.
tomatoes in general.
But these ones
Also,
weren't
grilled
walkers
cheese.
all
I don't
long
really.
ago.
I'm not really a
They
big
were
fan of grilled
survivors.
cheese too.
They might have
So
useful
it's
stuff.
kind of. I don't know. The 2 ingredients dishes.
That one's not coming back.
Eh.
See what else
Eh
he's got.
to me.
I'll check this one.
Oh, touching ass.
Hold on to him. Ammo's getting hard to come by, and things aren't going to get better.
Okay. ID.
Find anything?
Stuff?
Stuff? Just stuff? Well, you already sound like a teenager.
Still playing Rainbow Six? Are you still playing Rainbow Six? Recently, I've been playing Marvel Rivals, Ryu. It's just so addicting.
Smart haircut.
Thanks.
So, has your crew always been so
She hating
dysfunctional?
on everyone and everything today.
You
She
fit
really
in there.
is.
But you weren't like them.
I
Oh,
was
so
with
it's a
a
better
different
group.
group before. That one worked better, I think. That was when I got my hair cut like this.
Look at Miss
That's it.
Sophisticated Eater here.
Enough out. These things
Hey, I
are
have
cold.
taste,
Sharpen
okay?
a blade,
I
strike a
love
flint.
food.
Jamie
Hell
always
yeah,
had me in her
yeah,
face.
love Marvel
Grabbed my
Rivals.
hand when I went reaching in.
Wow, what do you mean wow? Okay.
Can never be too sure with these things. Here, give me a hand.
No, I kind of like Jane, you know? Oh. Are you implying that I don't? No, 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 no. I didn't say that.
These
I
glasses.
just
they're
said
sounds.
Looks like
I
your
have
friend didn't
good
make it.
taste. Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Me.
I don't know what to tell you.
All we know is that she was here. It could be a good sign.
It could
Don't
be a
go
good
getting
sign.
your hopes up.
Girl, did you
I
just
know what you
growl
want
at
me
me?
to say,
Oh, Sarah.
Shit. Okay, come on. We gotta find a way in.
Oh my God, why is she
Looks
still
like there's an
alive?
opening over
See, I'm telling you, I knew she would have. Wait.
Oh no.
Uh oh. Who's that? Oh my God. Nick?
Nick.
Look, he's your friend. You should do this.
I didn't really like him, to be honest.
I'm sorry, Nick.
Honestly, I didn't really like Nick. Nick caused us so much trouble, okay? He was so on edge. All the time. Oh, again. That was so bad, again. One more. Oof.
It's all right. It's done. If it comes to it, if Luke or Sarah or anybody needs to be put down, you gotta be ready for it. No hesitation. You know that, right?
It never gets any
Oh,
easier,
God.
does it?
Hasn't
Kinda
for
like
me.
her. She's kinda like an older sister.
That hatchet of yours seems to get stuck pretty easily. It's gonna get you killed. Here, use this.
Screwdriver? Thank you for the
Very
head pass. Thank you for the hydrate.
We can do this.
Split open like a watermelon.
They don't sound too bad. Clock's ticking.
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
I know you are. We need to get a better look.
Okay.
How about you get the close one, and I'll hop the fence to get the other. Go for it.
Okay. I'm ready. Okay.
Nice work. You know what you're doing.
I thought you were gonna hop the fence.
Now watch this.
Oh.
Got a nice little addition to your arsenal. Take out the knees first. Then, put a knife in the back of its head when it's down.
Oh my God, am I
All right,
learning
let's
combat?
get a look at what we've got on deck.
Okay.
It's gonna take some work to get over there.
Anything else I can look at? Oh. Okay, we're just gonna go stab him. Oh! Cute. Nice. Oh my God. She's fighting for her life over there. Get a knees! Get the head.
You did the knee thing. Nice trick, huh?
Oh my God. I'm gonna make some soup. Good luck and don't die. Thank you.
That's a lot of walkers.
Thank you.
Look up about
Good luck
something.
on making soup.
And what
Do
gets
not
the
get
interest of the dead?
burned.
People. How do we get in?
If we can make enough noise on this side, we can lure those walkers over here. Then we might just be able to go through that other trailer and get to your friends. What do you think of that?
Yes.
Make some noise.
Right. What's going to grab their attention?
Oh,
I got you
the
covered.
car.
Yeah, it does look pretty strong.
Okay, I have bullets. Can I beep?
Damn it, don't do this.
That's good, but we need to keep it going somehow.
Key. I don't have a key. TV? It's not on.
Come on.
Okay, let me look around. No, I can't walk any further. Barricade. Talk to Jane.
What am I looking for? See if you can find something to distract them.
Something.
We can get around this way, but if we don't get those walkers to move,
What?
we're not getting very far.
What can I do, Sarah?
Okay, I can't go anywhere else. Gotta love invisible walls. Oh god, I love them so much. Oh, wait. Is there a key here? This is the only spot I could like walk around. Look at walkers.
Sarah's drawing them in.
Then we gotta draw them away.
Okay, let me go back inside the car. There has to be something inside the car, right?
Calm down.
I just search. No, go back. Okay, I have a key. Oh my god, thank you for the reading! Ace Prime,
Let's
welcome!
find a way to
Oh,
keep it on.
I don't have dimensional before this new model. I mean, the eyes changes, but the hair is still green. I need to fix that. Probably, I might do it later. I don't know, when I have time. The new model looks great. Thank you. No, you look great. How are you? How's your day? Can I use bullets? Sarah's glasses? Okay.
Damn it, don't do this.
Let's find a way to keep it on.
What? Okay. Find a way to keep it on. I don't have a
What do you
key.
want me to do?
What if I yell at them?
Hey, over here!
But you, but you in this form with red eyes though, kind of hot. Oh my goodness. Then you have right here. I do have a pink hair version that I still haven't did a redeem for. I'm planning on making more redeems, but I've just been too lazy. Oh wait, does he have a key? Hanging in there? Dave's okay? That's
What are
good,
you
that's
thinking?
good. Oh, put him on the horn.
If we lean him on the horn, it'll keep honking and draw the water.
Pink hair
Just
now?
like moths in a flame.
I'll
Give me a
probably
hand.
do it next stream. We'll see, we'll see. Dog safe. Oh. Then you'll be bubblegum, not Peter? I don't want to be bubblegum. Okay. No, now? No, later. Later.
It's working.
Come on!
Let's go. So you like being Peter, huh? No, I did not say that. No. I didn't say that. No. Peter's a great name. I mean, Peter is a great name.
Come on.
Peter's a great name.
Crap. We gotta move it.
I hope more people die and traumatize Clem. Clem is old now. She's killed a lot of people, okay? Like Kenny's
Try something
girlfriend. Kick.
You're gonna need to use more force than that.
Put some muscle into it.
I'll hold them off. Just get us
Help me block this! Hurry!
Oh god! What did I click? What the heck did I click? How do I unpause? Oh there. Okay. Oh my god. I clicked the wrong button!
Sir, please. Who's out there?
Luke!
Clem? Oh, thank
She
you.
clicked off of it? I think I did!
You made a run for it. Looking for help.
I saw him outside.
Look, he was out there, but we took care of him. You know.
Fuck.
Oof, Nick. Oof!
When I heard y'all banging through the door,
Luke, where's Sarah?
I don't know what to do about her.
What's the matter?
You gotta help.
Oof. She's panicking. She's having an anxiety attack.
Sarah, look. Look, it's Clem. See, it's just like I told you. They're okay.
Hi, bestie.
Sarah, come on. We have to go now.
Was she bitten? Did they get her?
No, she ain't bit. She's just... Yeah. I don't know what to do. I can't snap her out of it. Okay, I tried to carry her, but I guess Carver messed me up pretty good back there.
Oof.
I don't know, it's just after Carlos, she just lost it. Started running through the woods like a maniac. I chased her for I don't know how long, and then, while she saw this mobile home, made a beeline right for her. I'm just glad y'all are here.
We're not out of the
I
woods.
vote.
What are we gonna
Let
do
her
about
be
her?
the sacrifice.
Maybe she'll listen to me.
Maybe.
Let her be the face.
Listen, they're gonna tear this place open pretty soon. We can't stay. So, we gotta get her up, or we gotta...
You gotta leave her.
I've been trying. I've been trying for hours. I could barely get her to look at me. Clem?
Damn,
Sarah,
why?
it's me.
Why it has to be me?
Hi. No!
Shit.
Oof.
I know how you feel right now. It's one of the worst feelings in the world. Ever since the walkers.
Damn, why?
so many people I know
I gotta
have
play
died.
doctor. Oh
People
my
I
god.
love. And for stupid reasons.
Crap, we're surrounded. What about the skylight?
All we got.
Clem,
Okay.
there's no time.
Clem.
When everything started, I met my friend Lee. He tried to help me find my parents.
Oh,
He protected
Lee.
me more than anyone else in my whole life. He died to keep me safe. I was so scared. But you're still here. Because he taught me to be strong, even when I'm scared.
Aww.
Because he wanted me to live.
Aww.
And your dad protected you because he wanted you to live. He would still want that.
Yeah, grow up, Sarah. Grow up.
Get to the skylight, now!
Come on, I'll boost you. My
Luke.
ribs. We're gonna need something to stand on.
Luke, get over here, help me hold this!
Oh,
Clem, see what you can find.
see what I can find. This?
Can we use this?
It's not big enough.
Not big enough? Okay.
The fridge.
Forget it. That thing ain't budging. Find something
Okay.
else.
Something else, something else.
Can we use that?
Yeah, that would work.
What? Oh, shit.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Ready?
On 3. 1, 2, 3!
Uh-oh, it's gonna have to be quick. Okay. Why you look at crazy eyes? Oh my god.
Clem! Clem, help her! Help Jane!
Okay, go, go! Keep pushing! Go!
Go, go, okay. You said branch with a stick? It my branch is sick. We need something to climb up.
It's through.
Hey, Jane.
Luke, you first. We need you up top.
Okay, come on.
Clem!
Sarah, we have to go. Are you listening? I can't do it.
Now, Clementine! If she doesn't want to go, you can't make her.
Oh my god.
Don't let her take
Just
you
the
down
force.
too. Not again.
Damn. Can I convince Sarah?
I can't. Daddy! Snap out of it, Sarah. Please.
Slap her.
save
Just
her,
slap
Clem.
her.
We have to
Clementine,
go.
slap her.
Believe me, I know about this.
Hurry up.
I would have just slapped her. Stop! Stop, Sarah! Oh my god!
Clementine!
Oh my god! Okay, let's go. I knew it. I knew all I needed to do was slap
We
her.
gotta go. Come on.
That's hilarious. Oh my god. Front or backhand? I gotta love that. Damn. I didn't think they were actually gonna let me slap her.
Look, I hate to ask this, but are we there yet?
We're not far.
Okay.
Look, Sarah, you can get through this. We both will.
That's a good way to convince someone.
But
That's
I'm
how
not
I would have
okay.
convinced someone.
Just try. Can you do that?
Use violence, alright?
She
just
just needs
kidding,
a little
don't.
time, Clem.
But like last
Leave her
resort,
be for a bit.
violence. Everyone lines up and
I don't know
What?
about this.
oh, and has a turn.
The way she is, she's gonna cause problems.
One by one.
What happened in there? When we went in there, you were ready to help, but then something changed.
Look, I'd seen that kind of thing before. I just didn't want to stick around for the bitter end. Sorry, I don't mean to sound harsh.
It's okay. I get it.
I get it.
Things aren't always simple.
And just because you got her out of there today, doesn't mean you saved her. Trust me.
Are we gonna learn her lore?
I tried to save Jamie too, but she gave up.
Lore. Why you keep
I just-
glaring at me, Luke?
I can't believe it. As soon as you guys said go, I was the first one up on the roof. Like I had already made up my mind.
Luke, you can't let it eat
God.
away at you.
That's alright, Luke. I need you alive.
Well, I can't forget it.
I dragged my sister across 4 states. And every morning she'd say she wasn't getting up. So I'd convince her, or push her, or goddamn carry her if I had to. Until this time, walkers cornered us, forced us up to the roof. And when they kept coming, I couldn't make her jump, couldn't throw her. So I tried something else. I told her she could have what she wanted. And I left her there.
Think of the hip pass, Kenny. Thank you.
Jumped to the next building over by myself.
You left
Sorry,
your sister?
Jane.
Jane, I'm really sorry.
Thank you for the hydrate, Kenny. Welcome. Aren't you still streaming?
Killed me for a long time. But I finally realized that I'd put her on a forced march through hell, when all she really wanted was for me to let her go.
Mm.
Sarah was that way too.
Jane?
No regard for her own safety. Or ours.
I hope I did the right thing.
Nope, not anymore. You ended your
think you did.
stream? Oh my god, how's your
Come on.
stream?
Let's get back to your friends.
Also, how are you, Kenny? How are you? For once I didn't bombard you while streaming, right? I'm so surprised. Oh, bro has
Son
no
of a
ears.
bitch. You found him.
Yeah, I'm a little amazed myself, to tell you the truth.
I'm doing that right,
for Clem
Lo.
and Jane,
Stream is good.
I don't
That's
know what
good.
would
That's
happen.
good. I got so many people killed.
Sarah, how you doing, hon? That's okay, sweetie. Whenever you're ready. I'm just glad you're here.
How are you today? I'm doing great.
Wait,
I'm doing
wait.
great.
Where's Nick?
I don't know what I
Rebecca,
did today.
How about we,
I'm not gonna lie,
go for a
today
walk?
I played a whole lot of TFT.
Let's just give him some space. I have something I need to talk to you about,
I
too.
played a whole lot of TFT. I woke up and went straight to TFT. I can't help it. It's just so fun. It was just so fun.
I ain't gonna sugarcoat this.
I've been
That
loving the
baby's
new
coming even
set.
faster than
Like,
Rebecca's
loving
letting
it.
on.
So much.
But I was hoping you might know.
Maybe too
Does
much.
Luke know anything
I don't know.
about babies?
It's a problem. By yourself?
he-
Yeah, by
I don't
myself.
know, mentioned Carlos teaching him anything? Just in case?
No, I don't think so.
I was afraid of that. I don't know anything. Mike sure as hell doesn't. I don't even know how to ask Jane. And that just leaves
Kenny?
Kenny. He went in there after you left. Said he needed a minute by himself.
No.
I ain't seen him since.
I'll go in there.
I don't think he's doing well.
I'll go in there.
Thank you,
Time to
Clem.
talk to Kenny
I really do
again.
think that might be best.
Round 2. I played it for a little bit back then, but kept getting put in with hackers, so I stopped. Really? Wait, I never got like hackers in my games before. It's crazy, crazy. Is he dead? Please come out here.
Kenny, could you please come out?
What the hell's the point?
Oh, he's
You
depressed.
know what it feels like.
Don't like you love talking to both Kenny and
Almost
Kenny.
Peaceful.
I do love both Kennys.
It feels peaceful. It was like I was floating away, watching the whole thing happen to me.
This Kenny is depressed. You know why? Because I killed his girlfriend.
Nothing's changed. I'm still taking a beat.
Accidentally, okay? I was trying to save her. And then, you
Gotcha.
know.
Sarita, no peace. No
Yeah,
rest.
you know.
The punches
Some
just
things
keep
happen.
coming. Why the hell couldn't Carver have just finished me off? Obviously, I ain't helping anyone by being here.
Rebecca needs your help.
Baby's almost here, and Rebecca needs your help.
Yeah, I guess she does. Nah, don't worry yourself about this. It's nothing.
Oh, he's so sad
Hadn't
now.
killed me yet, anyway.
Maybe one of the others can look at it for you.
Oh, shit. Does that mean what I think it does? What are we supposed to do?
Oh my god, she's giving birth. She's giving birth.
We should see what's going on.
Uh-oh. Never heard that term before? Oh.
Are you okay? How does it feel?
It feels wet. That's how it feels.
What's going on?
That's what she
Rebecca's
said.
water broke.
Ha, 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 ha.
Oh, Christ. We should... I don't know what we should do.
The baby's
Oh,
coming.
fuck.
That means the baby's coming, right?
Kenny, thank God. I think
Yeah,
the
her
baby's
water
coming.
broke.
What do we do?
All right. Give me a second.
No way can Rebecca trap her like this.
He's right. She's gonna make a lot of noise. They'll be able to smell her, too.
What
Now
do we
you got no
need?
choice but to lock down and ride it out.
What kind of stuff do babies need when they're being born?
Kenny, come on, you gotta focus.
Right. Sorry. Clean water for one thing. And blankets.
And we gotta get out of this damn cold, too.
That map shows a couple of buildings nearby. Maybe one of them could do the trick.
Okay.
The museum seems like it could be a good start. I'll go.
Good idea. Mike, think you could go with her?
Sure thing.
I'll check the building by the river.
Okay then. Kenny, you stick with Rebecca, and I will check the perimeter for walkers. Sarah? Sarah, you just stay here with Rebecca and Kenny, okay?
Ooh, she's a liability. Not gonna lie. Should have left her.
I know,
But
it
I
must
wanted
have
to
been
slap
hard,
her.
but
Damn.
Thank you for talking to Kenny.
If only I didn't
love for
slap
you to give
her.
me and Mike a hand looking at the museum, but I was thinking, how do we know Jane ain't just gonna take off? Maybe you should go with her. Make sure she comes back.
What do you mean by that?
You know, she doesn't seem to like being around people
No,
much.
I trust
She
her.
volunteered to head off awful fast. I guess it could be nothing.
I trust Jane.
Okay, Bunny.
I mean, I would have never made it back without her.
Just something to think about.
You are the least person we could trust. Okay, Bunny.
Okay, we're looking for warm blankets, clean water, disinfectant.
That all sound right?
Don't worry. Everything's gonna be fine.
I want to
I'll check on Sarah.
I'll help everyone else too.
I think that'd be good.
Yeah, sure. All right, everyone, you know what to do. Let's be fast.
Can
and
I
let's be
slap
careful.
Sarah again? Is that possible?
Hey, Sarah. You know, Rebecca's starting. They were going to leave me, weren't they? Of course not. Luke tried really hard to get you to come with him. How come you didn't leave me?
Oof. We're friends.
Because we're friends. No, we're not.
You're right, we're not.
Just want my dad. I know. When he gets here,
Oh my
we
goodness.
should all go back to the cabin. We're safe there.
He's dead. He's dead.
He's dead. You saw it happen. You need to face that. Sarah?
Hey, I think that's all she can take for now. She'll be all right.
Oh
The
my
others could really use a hand
goodness.
scout for supplies.
Help Jane. Help
I'll
Jane.
go help Jane.
Good. Don't be too long if you can help it.
Okay. Oh goodness. I hate Sarah. She's so weak. She's so weak. Stand up, girl. Stand up. Oh my god. So sad. Oh, Jane. Visitor center? What is she doing?
Oh, hey.
Are you okay?
Are you okay?
Yeah. Yeah. It's just a lot's happened today. And I don't know if... Well, it's sometimes good to have someone watching your back. So, come on, partner. Let's go check out that deck. I like the height.
Okay. Okay, Jane. You don't seem okay.
You don't seem okay.
Huh? Well, yeah. But who is okay? Let's just focus on this right now.
Aww.
I hope this place is what we're looking for. God knows we could use a break.
It's law.
Check this out. This gate's still locked. Which means that hopefully no one's gotten to whatever was locked in there in the first place. Who knows what could be in there?
Maybe there's still food.
If it's locked, maybe there's still food.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Great minds think
Maybe I
alike.
can pick the lock.
A nail file?
Versatility is not overrated.
I feel like you could just break it.
You know,
It's,
wouldn't hurt to try a heavier
it's a
hand with
small
this thing.
lock.
See if you can find something bigger. We might need to bust the mechanism.
Okay. Something bigger? Like this friggin' cannon? What?
You think this thing still works?
Check the muzzle, Napoleon.
Oh.
They fill them with cement, so they're safe.
Ah. I didn't know they do that. Telescope.
I guess it's broken.
Okay. Poster? Civil War. Trash can.
Find anything?
No, not even trash.
No? I can't walk anywhere else? Is there something I could grab? No? Oh. Wait, am I gonna
There's
see
some
something?
buildings across the river. I think I can see a church.
The nearest river crossing is miles up. Rebecca wouldn't make it in her condition.
Who's that?
Keep it in mind, though.
Jane, there's someone coming toward us.
Shit. He's coming this way. And who knows if he has friends nearby. I don't like having some stranger sneaking around, so
Can we fight him?
could be too risky.
Can we
I
fight
didn't
him?
get a good look at him. But we should scope him out and see what he's up to.
It looks
I
like
don't
he has a
having
broken
some
leg.
strangers sneaking around so close to the others. We've got enough on our plates with a baby coming.
Let's
Last
just wait
thing
him
we
out.
need is someone telling their friends about the new easy targets in the neighborhood.
We should just try and stay out of sight till he's gone.
Good call.
Okay.
Shit. Hide now.
Is he gonna open it? Is that his place? No! Why would you hide there, Clementine? Why didn't you follow Jane? Oh. He's putting something in the trash?
Подожди,
Uh-oh.
подожди.
Oh, he's speaking Russian.
I'm just a kid. Please, don't hurt me.
He's shaking!
Do you understand me?
Yes. I'm
Oh my God.
Arvo. I'm going to
Arvo?
go. I don't want to shoot. I don't want to shoot anyone. Especially маленькая девочка. Little girl.
You don't have to shoot anyone. Just put the gun down.
Back up.
Oh! Wait, that was hot.
Put the bag down.
Oh my god, Chaos! Welcome in, Chaos.
Make sure he
welcome,
doesn't have any other
welcome.
weapons in there.
How are you? Also, shit, you didn't even sponsor the group chat? Are you still? Oh yes, I am. I am still good. I gave it a thumbs up. I'm still good. Doing
I
good.
have
Been
no more
watching
guns.
Devil May Cry.
I swear to
We
you.
just
Oh,
need to make sure
nice.
you're not a threat.
Я дурак.
Clementine,
Like I would notice.
anything?
I'm sorry. I'm
Wow.
sorry, but yes, I am still good.
That's a serious stash of meds.
No,
How's
no, no,
Devil
no, no.
May Cry?
Take
Do you
whatever
like
want,
it?
but don't take the medicine. It's for my sister. My older sister, she's sick. The pain makes her cry, and that makes those things come. Please.
Why are you hiding
If
it?
that medicine's for your sister, why are you hiding it in the garbage?
I need to keep it. I need to keep it safe.
Sister or not, we could really use that stuff.
No.
Are we
you
gonna
not
rob
nice
him?
people. You have already left me defenseless, and now you take my sister's medicine. You are vuri.
Hey, we've got people who are suffering, who need this
Okay,
medicine.
what if we just take some of it?
Luke's still a wreck after Carver's. Kenny's a mess. Rebecca's in pain. Look at all of it. Clementine, we need
People
that
are
stuff.
suffering just as much as yours. You are not special. Clementine, yes, you must
We don't believe a
me.
fucking word about your sick
Please
sister.
don't make my
Keep the
sister
bag.
suffer. She has been through
Return the
enough.
bag.
Oh, yeah? Well, I think you're just some junkie. You know what that word means,
Oh,
huh?
oh, no, I'm telling the truth.
Ah!
I swear upon my own life.
I don't believe any of this.
Return the
Medicine,
bag.
Clement. You're not taking them.
I'm not robbing anybody. Just let him go.
Oh, Боже. Thank you, Clementine. Thank you.
But we keep the gun though. We keep the gun. Oh my god.
What are you doing? You don't have to do this.
Jane, what are you doing?
Don't you ever come around here again. I don't care if you do have
She's
some sick
scary,
sister.
oh my
Next time I
God.
see you, you won't just be walking away.
Just remember after
Go.
4 p.m. your time. Okay, okay. It's so far it's good. It's still very different than the game, but I can understand the changes made to make it to a series format. Ah, I see.
Can't believe I've gotten
Leave
into
it? Yeah,
this.
I'm leaving it. I'm a
Threatening some
good
stupid
person.
kid?
I thought you were
Thought
gonna
you
shoot
gonna
him.
shoot him.
Why? Did you want me to?
No. Oh my god.
Go get the others.
This is a
We
hard
get this
choice. It
place
really
open,
is.
And we need to get moved in ASAP.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Chaos. The timing was not there. I actually had to go to bed since I got work early. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you, Kenny. Thank you, thank you. Have a good night, Kenny. Make sure you lock your doors, lock your windows, lock your closets, because I'm gonna lurk. Sleep well, rest well. Thank you for coming by.
Clem, hey. Any luck with that observation deck? I was just checking on Rebecca and Kenny. They said they
They
hadn't
are
heard from you.
unlocked.
I don't guess there'd be much, but Jane seems pretty resourceful.
You met a stranger.
Jane and I were trying to open the gift shop and a stranger showed up.
What? Shit. This is the last thing we need right now. What happened?
Jane
Scared
took
him
his
off.
gun and scared him off.
Well, glad you're okay.
Oh my god. Thank you for the head pass. Thank
Jane
you for the
still up there now?
hydrate.
Yeah,
My
she's
water.
trying to get the gift
Water.
shop opened.
A water
No,
bottle.
I can't figure her out. I mean, she really lays it on the line, but at the same time, she doesn't show you anything that counts.
I like her. She's honest, and she knows what she's doing.
Yep. That's more than I can say for some. Jane seems like the kind of person who gets tempered by hardship, you know? But when I look at Kenny now, he seems broken. Broken people get reckless. I know you got a history with him. Look, I think he's a good guy. At least started as a good guy. But I just think he's had to take more than he can handle.
Yeah, he always tries to do the right thing, but he's not the same anymore.
Yes, that's true.
I'm glad you see it too.
I need to tell the others about the deck.
Yeah, good. I will, I'll see you back there.
Oh, Luke. Luke. Oh my god. Everyone seems so sad. You know, if I was in this situation, I would just be laughing my ass off.
I'm not supposed to be here yet,
Like,
Kenny.
they'd be like,
What if
Shan, why are you
something's
so
wrong?
unserious?
Nothing's
This is
wrong.
a very,
Babies know how
very
to be born.
important matter. And I'm just like, yo,
Clementine.
everyone chill out.
What'd you
Lamau,
The
lol.
building around back has an observation deck.
God
Somewhere the
damn.
baby will be safer? It's coming so much faster than I thought.
I told you. You're getting yourself all worked up over nothing.
It's high up, so it should be safe from walkers.
Sounds good. As soon as Mike and
Damn.
Bonnie are
No
back,
shit.
we'll go.
By the way, what did I miss the past hour? Who died? Nick is dead. So far,
Glad you made
from what
it
we
back
know.
safe.
Kenny was
How are
going
you
a little bit
feeling?
crazy earlier, and I
Scared.
slapped Sarah. That's my favorite part.
Alvin was here.
Do you on crack? That's why. Oh, Alvin would be proud of you.
Alvin would be really proud of you right now.
You think so? I hope you're right. I know it's a waste of time, but I can't stop thinking about things I should have said to him. Things I should have talked to him about.
Alvin thinks it's gonna
Alvin
be a girl.
told me that he thinks the baby's gonna be a girl.
Oh, yeah? That big dummy never did have a sense for these things. I've got a feeling this one's a boy. You're a
I
good
think
kid,
it's gonna be a
Clementine.
boy too.
I'm glad you'll be there to watch out for this baby. Ah, oh shit.
I got this. We ain't seen Mike or Bonnie in a while, and I'm not saying I don't trust them, but I'd appreciate it if you went and checked up on them.
Yeah, go on ahead. I'll be fine.
Okay. Okay. Look at the sign. God, this is such a long walk. Parker's Run Memorial Museum. So funny story about them guessing the gender. My mom kind of has a sixth sense for that. She has so far guessed the gender for like 5 or 6 people I know, and was right every time. Really? Oh my god, that's crazy. Maybe she's psychic, you know?
Hey, Clem.
I thought you went with Jane. She didn't take off, did she?
Take off? Why do you think she'd take off?
We found a place for Rebecca to have the baby. An observation
know,
deck
maybe.
with a gift shop.
Ooh, maybe.
It's way up high. And
You know what I
it'll be safe
heard?
from the wind.
I don't know.
Oh, that's great.
Just
Like
give me 10
whenever
more minutes to
I
search
get
them
like
up.
He
weird
doesn't wanna
dreams
go
about
back
like a
empty-handed.
grasshopper or something.
I just want to help.
No, not grasshopper. About like a praying mantis.
Keep
It
one eye on the
always
woods
turns
while we're
out
here.
somebody is
I don't want
pregnant.
nothing sneaking
Like
up
the
on
day
us.
of. I don't
watch
know
your
if that's
side,
crazy.
you
Is
watch
that
yours.
crazy?
Deal.
Like whenever I dream about a praying mantis, somebody's pregnant. Talk to Mike.
You
Civil
think
War
maybe they
Canyon.
say that stuff about water and blankets just to get people out of the way?
Oh,
A
you don't
praying
know what the
mantis.
hell you're
Yeah, a
talking
praying
about.
mantis.
And you didn't have to come with me.
No, I wanted to.
So
Jane said these
I'm
don't
just
work
saying, it's
anymore.
weird. It's like it's
just
a
for
weird
show. Be
coincidence.
handy though.
Also really loud.
Good point.
So was pregnant. Pregnant. Your relative, a dead relative. Maybe. And then they came to told you.
Souvenirs, huh?
I don't know.
Looking for a
I think
keychain
praying
with your
mantis
name
are
on it?
like,
No. Why would I want a keychain? I don't even have any keys.
I don't know.
Ah,
They're kind of
good point.
scary, aren't they? They're carnivores. Did you know praying mantis are
There's
carnivores?
sure been some animals
Like they eat
through
other
here.
bugs.
Watch
It's
where you
literally
step.
crazy.
Empty.
Pregan.
luck?
No. not so much.
Preganan.
Unless you want some broken glass.
They will fight you no matter what size. Yeah.
I tell you, I sure don't like being near a
I sure hope we can find something to take back.
Me too.
Okay. Can't open this door, no? Anything here? No, I keep hearing Bonnie, but I don't know where she is. Oh wait, she's right here.
Lee would have loved this place.
Aw, Lee.
Do you see anything good?
Not so far, but let's give the place a good going over.
Also, just remember, chat, 4 days? 4 days for what, huh? Oh, Civil War codes?
Hey, look at this. An old coat.
Nice.
Yeah,
Good
4
find,
days
Clem.
until I get canceled for
You
making
should
Sam
hang on
play
to that.
Sekiro.
It's gonna get a lot colder before it starts getting warmer.
Maybe I could give it to Rebecca.
That's a good idea. I'm sure she'll really appreciate it. I guess you've already got that old coat I gave you.
Not
I
gonna
feel
lie,
so
I
bad
low-key kind of want to
about
play
everything
Sekiro.
that happened.
I don't
Hopefully you
know.
won't always think of me like
I've been
that.
dreaming about it.
Not that I blame you if you did. I haven't always used the best judgment.
You finally opened your eyes about Carver and what a bad person he was. That's something.
Yeah. Clem found a jacket.
Do it! Do
That's
it!
great,
I will
but
do it!
isn't Gray
In
the-
4
yeah,
days!
We can't put Rebecca in a Confederate coat.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Oh! Because
That's
she's...
better than nothing, though.
Oh! Whoops! I wasn't thinking about that. I didn't. Whoops! I didn't. Okay, that's so bad. That was low-key bad. It's low-key racist. Whoops. Putting Rebecca, an African American, is in a Confederate coat. I was not thinking about that. That's whoops. My bad. You have the urge. I will in 4 days. Okay. Can I open it? Okay. Water!
Over here.
Do it!
Oh my god.
Just do it!
Do it! Just
Water.
do it!
Bottled and clean. That's just what we need.
I mean, it's the apocalypse. Things are very
It's
desperate.
locked.
That is
You
true.
want to kick it down?
That'd make an awful lot of noise.
Yeah, maybe.
It could fit in.
You know, if somebody was small enough, they could maybe squeeze through that gap there.
I could try to pry it open some more, but I don't know if that'll help much.
I'll go.
All
I'll
right.
go.
All right. I'll go.
Thanks, Clem.
Just open the door from the other side. Mike will carry those things out.
Don't let your
Might
dreams
be a
be
bit
memes.
heavy for you.
Just do it. I will do it in 4 days. Okay.
I'm stuck.
Okay, maybe I push from...
Oh, don't touch my ass. Oh! Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit!
Do it!
Do it!
Well, that happened.
Guess I'm not quite as small as I used to be.
But you're tough for your size.
Shit. You're tough for my size.
I'm
Oh
sorry
my
I
god.
asked you. I won't
Stuck?
do it again.
Step, bro. 4 weeks later, today we're playing second. Oh,
I'll keep checking
this
the
channel
other
is
one.
unavailable. Yeah, guys,
get
I'm
this
gonna get
water.
canceled. I'm gonna get, you know, my account's gonna magically get, you know, banned in 4 days. Okay, why did they make it the little kid carry
I
it?
got this.
Oh, there we go.
That looks pretty heavy.
That's all right.
Yeah, what is Bonnie
I
carrying?
know it looks like a lot, but we could all go through this pretty quick. Carver was crazy, but at least his shelves were always full. We're gonna have to be conservative as hell.
What do you mean?
Nothing. Just that baby's gonna be hard on everyone, especially Rebecca. And between you and
And then
me,
my account's going to all of a
she's not
sudden
looking too
get
good.
hacked and become more active.
Come on, stick close.
Ooh.
It just walked on in like it owned the place.
Raccoon?
It'd make a nice meal.
We can eat raccoon?
I'd eat the shit out of that raccoon. Not like, I mean, just that I'd be really happy to eat that raccoon. I am starving.
Fresh meat would go a long way with Rebecca.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Don't let it get away!
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Where is it?
I think it went over there.
Over here.
Oh, shit!
Shoot.
Dang it!
Did I do it too early? No, don't shoot it!
Not with the walkers out there.
Oh my god! Aww!
I'm even
He has
hungrier than I was
babies!
before.
Rocket! Rocket.
How'd I get to a place where I'm sad I'm not eating raccoon?
Well,
No,
I'm sort of glad it got away.
It's
It had a
okay, it's
family.
okay. It has a
Yeah,
family. No,
Come
no,
on,
no, we're not
let's
gonna
just
kill
get
the
this back to Rebecca
raccoon,
and the
okay?
others.
Not gonna lie, I did not want to kill the
We don't have much
raccoon
time
in the
to
first
waste.
place. I didn't want to eat a raccoon in the first place. I don't know. What does raccoon taste like? Raccoon meat?
You're telling me your arms ain't tired?
We have a family.
I can do this
You had the
all day.
trash panda scared. It's okay. It's okay.
Oh God.
Breathe like I told you.
Okay. Oh God. Oh God.
That was dinner. It's okay. It's fine. It's fine. We can eat. We can eat people.
Clementine!
Shit!
It's RJ from Over the Hedge.
That was Luke.
Kenny, we've got to do something.
You just keep that baby safe.
Kenny?
We can't stay here.
Kenny?
Clementine, where's the place you and Jane found?
I'll
Oh
show
my
you.
god, is that?
Someone
That
help me
bro?
out.
It's Dolce VT? Mike the water!
There's so many.
Mike, the water.
What, so early? Oh, you met Bonnie? And Kenny? Yes, I did! Oh, Rebecca's about to give birth.
Sarah,
How are you? Welcome in. Be the man your son needed, Kenny? Oh god.
Jesus.
Clem, I don't think he's okay. He's losing it. I mean, that isn't...
I don't think he's okay either. This is bad.
Yup, Kenny's going crazy. Wait, where's Luke? Luke is back at the other place with Jane.
Damn it!
Gotta make a run for it, Kenny. Gotta make a run for it. Also, I slapped Sarah. I love that part. That part is so funny. Okay.
It was about as human as I've felt in a long time. I almost forgot what... Clementine!
What?
Jesus, Clem, it's just not...
What's going on? No! Did they do it? But they...
I mean-
What?
In here. Let's get you comfortable.
What the fuck are you two doing up here?
That's crazy. That's
We got God knows how many
crazy.
walkers out
That's
there, but it's
crazy.
you we're supposed to be keeping an eye out for.
Hey, hold on a second. Just tell me what's going on.
What's going on is you're a reckless fucking moron.
Rebecca's having the baby.
Now?
Oh my god, bro's just slacking.
sorry.
Look at
Right
his
over
son.
They're coming up the stairs! Here.
Oh my god.
You
Did you
want
slap Sarah
help?
to tell
Get
you?
out there and keep the walkers off.
Did you slap Sarah? That way you want
They
to...
can't rush us on the
No,
stairs!
I
Shoot
slapped
'em
Sarah
before they
because
get
she was
to
being
us.
stupid.
Shit,
Okay.
that's a lot of them.
I help
We
myself.
need everyone out here!
I'm going outside. I'll help pull them back.
Go. I've got Rebecca.
Oh my god.
Here they come!
That was fucking a second. That's
can't let them up here.
crazy, Luke. That's insane, Luke. Oh my god. Okay. Okay.
There are too many of them.
Shit! Keep
Oh, the big guy?
shooting. They are
The
not
big
getting up
guy.
here.
this gate!
Help us!
We could block the gate with this.
I'll help, I'm coming.
We gotta push him off. Can I finish my second? Nah. Good for Luke. Good for Luke. Honestly.
Oh, shit.
Holy fuck! What the fuck is going on out there?
We're stuck here. Uh-oh.
Get back! Get back!
Oh, shit!
Oh, shit! Who fell?
Sarah, hang on!
Oh, of course Sarah
I
fell.
can't hold on.
Help me!
Oh my god.
Clem! Come on!
Help! Take my hand.
No!
Bye-bye, Sarah. Bye-bye, Sarah. Bye-bye. I'm sorry, Sarah. You're a liability.
There's nothing we could have done.
Sarah.
Never have gotten her up here.
I know, but I wish it could be different.
She was a liability, okay? Yes, Sarah, it's okay. It's
They're
okay.
climbing up.
What?
We're gonna make it up here.
We're so proud.
shit
Didn't
ever
hesitate. Okay, I was tired babysitting her.
Drop something else on them?
Nothing that will stop her.
Maybe we can drop the whole deck.
She's right. She's right. Drop the whole deck.
Drop the... Are you fucking crazy?
How are we gonna do that?
I don't know. Just look around.
The rope.
Ain't gonna work. It's too thick.
Oh, this? I don't think that's gonna do anything. Yeah, she was so useless, actually. No! Okay. You know what? It's okay. It's fine. It's okay. It's okay. It's fine.
There's nothing we could have done.
Okay.
We could never have gotten her up here.
I know.
Okay. So we can't chop off the
Push!
rope. Kicking it does nothing.
They're climbing up.
What?
They're gonna make it up here.
Fuck! Does this shit ever end?
Destroy
We
the
need
deck.
to break the rest of the deck.
She's right. She's right. Drop the whole deck.
Drop the...
Why did you
Are
read
you
chat
fucking
and
crazy?
shit?
How are
Why?
we gonna do that?
I don't know. Just look
Wait,
around.
why? I was thinking. Okay.
This ain't working.
Okay. Anything else? Anything else? Okay, this won't work either.
Ain't gonna work. It's too thick.
No, okay. Wait, what else can I click? What else can I click? Choose quantum plate.
We could have done. We could never have gotten her up here.
I know.
Okay.
I wish it could be different.
Can you shoot something? I don't have a gun.
Push!
Oh,
Hold on. Okay.
They're climbing up.
What?
They're gonna
Yes,
make it up here.
metal.
Does this shit ever end?
Oh. Destroy the
We
deck.
need to break the rest of the deck.
She's right. She's right. Drop the whole deck.
Drop the... Are you fucking crazy?
How are we gonna do that?
I don't know. Just look around.
How to break the whole deck? I can't do this. Oh, this?
Crap. Look!
That'll work. We bust that, the whole thing comes down.
Boost me.
Okay. Hook! Smash! Exactly!
They're getting closer. Clementine!
Move it!
Come on!
I'm going as fast as I can.
Watch it!
Son of a bitch!
Oof. Rip, Sarah. She's definitely dead there. Is it?
Is it?
Oh, maybe he's alive. Oh my god, I thought the baby was dead. Holy shit. Oh my god. Malnourished the baby? Did we 07? 07 to the baby? It's not white! That's hilarious. Oh, hey cutie! Oh my god! Epi-chan! Hi! Welcome in, Epi! How are you? How's your day?
How's he doing?
No privilege.
He's perfect. Who's a perfect little man?
He looks like
Who's
Alvin.
the most perfect little man in the whole world?
He looks like Alvin.
You think so?
Definitely.
But that means it's not Carver's,
Thank
right?
you.
Yeah, it's not Carver's. What did she name it though?
I'm fine. I just wish I could get warm.
Clem, why don't you give her that coat we found?
The
Sorry,
Confederate
you know, about the color.
coat.
You really think I care about that? Do you want to hold him?
Is he gonna bite me? I don't know how.
I don't know how.
It's easy. Just keep him close and support his head.
There you go.
Aww.
You're natural.
Look at you, like a big sister. Here, let me take him. You both should rest. Especially you.
When's the last time you slept, Kenny?
About 2 years ago. I'm fine. But somebody's gotta watch you while Mama gets her beauty sleep. You never forget that smell.
No. The smell of uterus. Is she gonna die? I remember Itoshi told me that she was gonna die. Is she actually gonna die? She just gave birth though.
Oh, shit.
She seems
What are you
alive.
doing?
Is she
Listen,
gonna die in her sleep?
I'm sorry. I've gotta go.
Go where?
Go where?
Just away, okay? You know, Jamie, Sarah, I'm not gonna stick around and watch it happen to you too. You know the score. You're a smart kid.
I'll be
I'll
okay.
be okay.
Sure. But give it enough time, and everyone's luck
Don't
runs out.
leave, Jane! Don't leave! I liked you!
Listen, when the shit hits the fan, 'cause it always does, remember that you can make it on your own. It's not an option for everyone. If things start heading south, don't let them drag you down with them.
Oh my god.
You don't owe them anything. They'll make you feel like you do. Like it's all one happy family. And when push comes to shove,
Yeah, I know.
good.
Oh god.
Okay.
So did Luke apparently. That Sarah was useless. He has a reason to live again. Oh, that
You
is
take
true.
care of yourself. I mean that.
No, Jane! Please don't leave! No!
Yeah.
I liked you! Stop! Stay with me!
I gotta go.
Aww. Oh, Luke. Luke, your baby girl's gone.
Thought you'd be asleep by now. You okay?
You know, at least he got a smash.
I'm fine.
Okay. Good. Hell of a night, though. Temperature's dropping. We're low on food. I think we gotta stay put for a while, you know, for Rebecca and the baby. So I'm thinking as soon as it gets light, Jane and I should go explore, see if we can find some place to scavenge. What?
Jane left. For good.
What? When?
Just now.
He's
Are you
heartbroken.
serious? She didn't
He's
say anything about
heartbroken.
leaving to me. What the fuck? Damn it!
He's heartbroken. Oh shit, I like
Keep
dead.
it down. Sorry.
I like dead. You too? What? But you still left? It's okay, it's
Of all the
fine.
childish bullshit.
Childish. God damn it, Kenny. You know what? Just lay off.
No, you put our lives, this baby's life at risk, so you two could roll around like fucking teenagers.
Wow, she did a hit and run.
I made a mistake, all right?
No, it's not all right. What do you want from me?
Luke didn't do anything wrong.
Not now, Clem.
Look, I'm sorry, okay? I fucked up. But you know what, Jane? She made an offer, and Jesus Christ, I needed it, okay? I mean, look around you, okay? Everything is shit. So forgive me for wanting to enjoy one moment of something else.
Fine, but this baby, he's what matters now. Got it? So get your shit together.
Where's my baby?
Is everything all right?
Everything is fine.
I'm spelling it the way you
Gonna need a
pronounce
good
it.
place to
Dead.
raise him,
I like
which
dead.
ain't here. We gotta push
I
on.
like dead. You
Head
too.
north. Get
I
to
don't
Wellington.
get. I don't get what you're
That's
trying to
all
say there,
There's a
Mom.
town across the river. It might be safe there.
Or at least it might be a good stop on the way.
Kenny!
I'm sorry.
Oof.
Clem's got a point. That could be a whole town full of supplies, and not that far from here.
Whole lot better than here, anyway. Looks like that's our best bet. We need to get on the road as soon as possible. We leave at first light.
Whoa, whoa. What are you talking about? Rebecca needs rest. A few days at the least.
We've got that baby formula.
And won't help the rest of us. And what about shelter? We'll freeze out here.
Oh, I
Luke's
liked
right.
it.
She needs to rest.
I liked
give it a
it.
few days.
I liked it.
Maybe that's for the best. We don't want to push Rebecca too hard.
Just give me a day or two, Kenny. I'll be fine.
This is a mistake.
Oh my
Look,
goodness.
all try to get some
Okay, Mom, I see, I
It's been a
see.
long day.
God, I'm so invested in this game. You
Sorry.
okay?
Okay, Bex? It's gonna be all right.
Oh my god, it took you that long? Okay, I'm like paying attention to the game. Okay, Mom, okay. I'm paying attention to the game. Wait, it's winter? Already? Wait, how long have we been walking? No way, this is the day after, right?
You all right?
She's exhausted. We all are.
I can keep going.
Yo, she looks so pale. Alright, I got to see Sarah. I'm gonna hop back over to Devil May Cry for a bit. Alright, Chaos! Have
We
fun!
should have left right away
Have fun,
instead of
have
waiting
fun.
around.
Thank you for coming
We could have found
by.
more food and been someplace
Keep
warm
going.
days ago.
We did the right thing. She was in no condition to move.
She's worse.
Sarah died. You got to see Sarah
We
die.
could still turn back.
I mean, that's
not
what
an
everybody's here for, right?
Everybody hang in there. We gotta keep moving if we're gonna make it to that town before nightfall.
You don't even listen to anyone else. You just go on barking orders. You gotta lighten up, okay? You're pushing them too hard.
Arguing isn't
Helping anything
helping.
by arguing.
Well, don't forget you agreed with me about waiting to leave camp until today.
Oh,
She dropped the baby.
Rebecca, let me take the baby.
He's okay. I've got him.
No, you rest for a minute. I'll wash him.
Back off, Kenny. She said she doesn't want you to take the baby. Don't be weird about it, okay?
I ain't being weird about it.
Yeah, you kinda have been.
Kenny knows what he's doing. He's been a dad before.
That's not the part I was concerned about.
Hello?
Oh my god.
What is this?
Oh. Wait, it's the kid! It's the kid!
Arvo?
Arvo?
Jane and I met him on the observation deck. Before everyone else came.
That's the guy?
You know this son of a bitch? Well, what's he want?
He doesn't look like much.
That ain't the point.
He has a sick sister. They might be in trouble.
Oh my god. I'm calling CPS. Go talk to him, Clementine. Go talk to him.
Hello. Your name is Clementine. Yes?
Hi, Arvo.
These are your friends? I'm hoping you can help me now. Not like before. All of you can help.
What do you need?
How can we help?
I need, things for bandages. I need bandages.
Are you hurt?
No.
Никакие оружия! Никакие оружия!
Uh-oh!
Никакие оружия! Fuck!
Это они?
Да. Это они.
Скажи им, чтобы они поставили
Is he a
оружие
bad
на пол, и
guy?
что мы забираем все, что они имеют.
Что ты хочешь, чтобы я взял?
Откуда я знаю? Чтобы у их не было.
What did your friend say?
I told them you are the ones who robbed me. They think it's funny that you're just a little girl.
I didn't rob you
They
though!
want you and your friends to put down the guns, so we can
I
take your
didn't rob
things.
you! I just took a
What
gun!
the hell?
Why get excited?
Clementine, you robbed this guy?
It wasn't me who took your stuff. It was Jane. It wasn't any of us.
Jane, where's the other woman?
Что происходит?
Их было двое раньше.
Еще один?
Не здесь?
I do not see a woman who was with you.
She's-
Where is she
She's
hiding?
gone.
She's gone. She left the group.
It's a trap. I know it. Они прячутся.
Oh
Я
my
знаю, что они
God.
прячутся. This can be easy for you.
Арво, скажи, чтобы они опустили оружие.
No,
All of
we
you,
have a
just put your guns
baby!
down. This will be fine.
We have a baby!
You have a baby with you? У них грудничковый ребенок.
We have a baby! Oh my god. No, you should have said close, idiot. Well, I'm being honest! No, it's not the time to be lying, okay?
Drop that now or
Are you saying you do it? Take it easy.
Don't even try it,
Don't fucking
I guarantee I'm a better shot than you are. I'll
Everybody's
drop
still
you both
yelling.
before you complain.
Everybody be cool. This doesn't have to go down like this.
She's dead!
Don't shoot!
Look, you don't look like
She's dead! She's dead! She's dead! She's dead!
We can work so
She's
well
dead!
if nobody does anything stupid.
Don't make me do it. Look at me. Do you hear me? I will kill you if I have to.
Давай! Давай! No!
Don't point at me! Oh no! I'm literally like so speechless. I don't know what to think about this. Oh my goodness. Oh my god. What? Oh my god. What? Oh my goodness. Left Sarah at the trailer. You and 40% of players saved Sarah at the trailer park. God damn, I should have left her. God damn. The whole group is dead? You don't know that? You don't know that? Huh? Maybe. I didn't do anything? Looks like Shen. Oh my god! Literally, that's crazy. Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, okay. Last episode, guys. Last episode. What the hell? What the hell was that? What the hell was that? Oh my god. baby raised by wolves. Oh my god. Oh, Jesus Christ. You know, I think... Okay. If Kenny dies, then it's literally game over for our group. Literally game over. It's either Kenny is dead or Luke is dead. That's my theory. One of those two. There's no way they're gonna keep both of them alive. You know, there has to be casualties. Either that or Bonnie is dead. Bonnie is dead or... What was the other guy's name? The black guy. I forgot his name! Oh my god. Bonnie or that guy? What the heck is his name? Was his name Marvin or something? I hope you're dead! No way they're gonna shoot a kid, right? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I got shot. Maybe. New character? Oh my goodness. Maybe. Because I think it's season 3. Season 3 is a different character, right? They threaten you? You don't think they will shoot? I don't think they shot me, you know, because I am a child. Okay? I think they shot one of the guys for sure. Bonnie? Okay, Bonnie, she either got killed 100% or she lived 100%. That's my theory. Kenny had to turn on friendly fire. Oh my goodness. Oh my god. Or plot twist, guys. Plot twist. Everybody else dies from like the Russian group, the other group, the enemy group. Everybody else dies except for Arvo. And then Arvo joins our group. He's the new Ben. He's the new Ben. Maybe. Oh, goddamn. Not gonna lie though, I'm like low-key happy Sarah is dead. And I'm low-key happy that I got to slap her. She needed that. Smack, okay? And you know what? I think, unpopular opinion, okay? Luke is only throwing a fit because he got noosed, okay? Because Jane did a hit and run on him, he's heartbroken. And that's why he's like crashing out on everyone. Kind of funny though, God damn. How long is this? God, I can't wait. Last episode. Okay. Episode 5. No going back. Let's do it. Just do it.
Previously on The Walking Dead.
Killing
Wait,
one
recap?
in order to save many is part of survival.
Carver.
I only need a minute.
Should have put you out of your misery right then.
I look at Kenny now. He seems broken. Broken people get reckless.
Here. Thanks. If things start heading south, don't let them drag you down with them.
Okay.
Drink that now or I'm gonna fucking shoot it. I'll do it. Drop it. Drop it.
Thank you for the head pass. The hydrate. Thank you.
Everybody be cool.
Oof. Mm. All right. What happens? What happened? Okay. What happened? Oh, Rebecca died. Rebecca died. And then Kenny shot Rebecca. And then everybody's shooting everybody.
Mike, get over it!
Oh, his name's Mike. Is everyone dead? I don't know. They're killing each other. The baby! The bloody Russians! Okay, there's a guy right there. Freaking Orville.
Hey! What are you doing?
Get in the goddamn baby! What do you think I'm doing?
Cover!
Okay.
I didn't even see him out there. Good work, Clem.
Oh god, Call of Duty, I'm cussing.
Okay, we gotta do something, y'all.
We told you,
Get
no
down here.
rushes. Oh god.
Can't just
Hello.
sit here and let this guy take pot shots at us till he runs out of ammo.
So do something!
Talking about it and do it.
Yeah, all right.
This don't have to get any worse than it already is. You can just go.
Это твоя вина. Ты, сукин сын. Я замочу каждого из вас.
English, motherfucker.
Oh god, Kenny!
If I can just get over to that side of the wall, I can maybe get an angle on this guy. Cover me, all right? Just shoot over towards woods.
Okay.
Okay.
Good, good. I just need the distraction. Okay? All right, on my go. Go.
Hey, what are you?
No! No! No!
Вы первые начали.
Sorry.
Luke, I'm sorry.
It ain't your fault.
I'm sorry,
Got me in the
Luke.
leg, but I think it went straight through. Shit, I don't know. We'll be fine. I think I'm gonna be fine.
Oh my god.
Нет, отпусти, отпусти меня!
Oh yeah, this is the hostage strat.
His hand. Shut up.
Отпусти меня, прошу! Я должен быть с ней!
I said shut up.
I'm not gonna say anything.
Leave him alone, Kenny. He's just a kid.
No, I'm ending this. Get out here right fucking now.
He's the hostage strat.
Ублюдок. Он и так в огонь.
Quit
Ты
fighting,
ему только
boy.
поможешь.
Think I'm bluffing? Get out here.
Перестань, отпусти меня! Я должен посмотреть, если здесь все в порядке!
Kenny, behind you!
Damn it.
Oh god, Kenny!
Наташа!
Natasha? You little son of a bitch! Uh-oh. Jane! She came back! Oh my god. Thank you for the leg! Thank you,
Safe
thank
to
you!
come out.
Here, I
She
got him.
Arvo fucking? Nah, we're gonna torture him. Killing him is too easy, you know? He gotta live is what he did. You know, live is the consequences, getting all of his, you know,
That
friends killed.
That was intense.
I thought, man.
Oh my
I thought
god,
that was
shed
it.
treatment!
That was for these assholes.
Oh my god.
Thanks for coming back.
I didn't know this man. I've never killed someone that didn't wrong me in some way, that didn't deserve it. Tried to pretend he was a walker, but it's different.
You
saved
saved
us.
us.
Yeah, that's why I did
Why
it,
are you giving it to him?
but wrong.
What do you mean? It should have been me. Oh god. You can still leave.
You can still leave, you know. There's nothing holding you here.
I sort of wish that was true. Let's go.
Do you like... Is the feeling mutual? Oh my god, are you writing in Russian?
How did this happen?
Okay, also, what does that even say?
Don't you go blaming yourself, Kenny. You did what you had to.
Shannon, make me a mod?
Protect the boy.
You wanna
She
be
just
a
lost
mod?
too much blood. Ain't nobody's
I would
fault.
time out dark.
You know, we
Wait, what
could've
did he
done better by
say? What did
She
he
was
say?
Too far gone.
She's with Alvin now.
Wait, what did
Jeez.
Kale say?
Don't worry, Becca. We'll take care of your boy. You rest easy.
Punch him! Break his legs!
Piece of shit!
Hey, hey!
Stop!
Guys,
Get off me!
come on!
It's over, man. He ain't a threat to us.
How can you say that? Of course he is! Get out of the way!
Whoa! What are you doing?
I'm doing the same thing this asshole tried to do to us!
It doesn't have to go down like that.
Kenny, please!
He's just a scared kid, man.
Natasha's his
There is
sister!
house, food.
I just realized.
Please. Please, I can take you.
Bullshit!
No. It's true. We have place. Not far. Food.
See? He wants to help.
Oh, don't be stupid. He's just trying to save his skin. Why the hell would you
Can I
help us,
trust
huh?
him?
I now want to see more people dead.
Then close your eyes and I'll make it quick.
Kenny,
Oh,
back
Kenny!
If he's telling the truth, it could
We
save all
need the
of us.
food.
We need the food. None of this will matter if we all starve to death.
She's right, Kenny. We're running low on supplies as
God.
it is.
It's worth the risk to check this place
No, you
out.
can't trust him?
Trust him, don't trust him. It doesn't matter.
It's okay,
You should go
it's okay,
anyway.
it's okay.
We just need to be careful. It can't
It's
be
only
far from
him.
here.
We
You
have him
stay
at
out of this.
hostage.
You're the
We
reason
have the
these fuckers
hostage
came after
straps.
us in the first
You know?
place.
Don't try and pin this on me.
Lay off, Kenny. She just helped us.
I was there with her. It's my fault too.
Think about the baby, Kenny.
Oh my
If
god.
there's supplies, we need them.
No, you can still find it.
Without more food. We gotta
It's
take
fine,
a
it's
chance.
okay.
Unless someone's got a better plan.
We got something to tie this shitbird up.
Yeah, I got something.
Chaos, what are you saying? What are you saying?
Follow me, I'll take you.
Just give me a reason.
These
Yeah,
people are
man, he
stupid.
Gets it.
It's okay. They're good. They're good. They live in a town. I mean, we could, you know, but like it'd be quicker if he could just take us there, you know.
Look,
Shane, Google
I
Translate
know
this.
you're probably pissed about me leaving.
Have you ever
When
heard
I heard
of
the gunshots,
the term
I knew it was a mistake.
being lazy?
It helps. The thing I'd normally do is walk away for good. But I didn't. Despite what my instincts are telling me. Despite everything I've seen.
I'm
not
glad you're back.
pissed. I'm glad you're back. I didn't want you to go in the first place.
Thanks. That's good.
You'll never
'Cause
know.
You're probably 90%
That's
of
okay.
the reason I came.
I've come
And
to
it'd
accept
probably
that.
get pretty annoying if you hated me the whole time.
Wouldn't want it to be annoying.
No, that would suck.
No, I love
I'm
that
gonna
Jane
try
came
and make
back.
this work. All I can do is promise you I won't abandon you again. Which, to be fair, I've never done before. even though I probably should have.
Should I ask the Russian spy watching your
You don't gotta
stream?
point the gun at
They
him
would
all the
answer.
time.
You forget what we just went through?
He ain't going anywhere, Kenny.
Oh my god, this is a Russian
No need to
spy
get your
watching my
arm all
stream?
I'm worried
Are
about
you
Kenny.
single? Wink,
He's
wink.
He's in a
For
dark
sure, you're like
place.
6 foot tall, right?
We gotta keep
right?
an eye on him.
Wink.
Everything he's been through. He's lost.
He'll be okay. I've known him
He'll
a
be
while.
okay.
Well, it's all starting to pile up. It's weighing on him. Everyone has a breaking point.
That is true. That is true.
You're the only one that he trusts. That he really trusts. That means you're the one that's gonna have to pull him back. He's counting on you. If we're really going to make this work,
I'll do my best.
I'll do my best.
I know.
Come on, slowpokes.
Okay, buddy. I hate Bonnie. I don't know. Everything that comes out her mouth is just... I hate it. I want to bully her so bad. Okay, Bunny. This is all your fault. Make her submit. Do it.
Wait up. Wait. We need to stop.
No, I'm fine. Hey, I just need a second. Sorry, I just put more weight on it than I should have.
All right, wait there. Hey, what I say? When I tell you something, you fucking listen, you understand?
Kenny, come on. There's no need for that.
Shut up,
He's
bitch.
getting what he deserves. I'm fucking talking to you. I say stop. You'd best stop.
He
Kenny,
understands.
he understands.
Just fucking stay put.
Oh god. Be the tough one,
I'm
Shen.
gonna have a word with Kenny. He doesn't
I
have
am
to
a
treat
top.
me.
Don't you see
He's
my
been
long
through
hair and my
You all right here?
amazing
Yeah. Go on and talk to him. I
attire?
got Clem if I need anything.
Okay.
Here, just take the baby.
Okay.
That don't mean you're a top, but I look like a top, right? I look like a top.
What is it with you guys?
What do you mean?
Every man I've known is always trying to let each other know how tough they are. Put them in their place. Bunch of dominant alpha male horse shit.
That is true.
And it all
That is
ends
true.
the same way.
But don't look at me. I ain't that guy.
Oh, that ain't true. You get in your fair share of pissing matches too.
Do I?
Are you kidding me? Yes.
They're just scared.
They're just
That's when it
scared.
happens. When they don't know what to do.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Guess it took a woman to talk some sense into him. Looks like Jane broke it up.
Keep pressure on it, okay? I'm gonna go fetch some bandages.
Hey, Bonnie.
Yeah?
I'm sorry.
For what?
Yeah, for what?
I'll be right back.
For what? Why are you sorry for? Wait, why is he sorry for? What? How are you
How are you
feeling?
feeling?
If I'm being
That
honest,
just means you have here to pull out while
been
getting.
better.
Okay, buddy. She's not top, but she does reach for the top shelf a lot. I don't even reach for the top shelf. If I can't reach it, I just give up. Try not to think about it.
Try not to think about it.
Sitting in the snow, leaned up against a tree, bullet in my leg. But alive. When so many of my friends.
You guys wanna know something
are
funny?
dead.
Like whenever I go
reason.
like grocery shopping by
And I couldn't
myself,
do
and my
anything
brother
to
asks me to like get something for him, and
Everyone
it'll be
was
like
sad.
at the very
Gone.
the highest shelf, right? And like I can't
Alvin
reach
and
it.
Becca,
I would
Carlos,
like
Sarah.
I would give
for
up,
what?
go back home,
You
and
don't make any
like
sense.
lie to my brother
I could've
that
done
they
more.
they
That
ran
ain't up for
out.
debate.
Oh yeah, it was
I know
out
my
of stock,
bones.
but
gotta live
you
with
know, truthfully, I just couldn't
All right,
reach it.
Mr. Bart.
That's perfect.
What'd I miss?
Oof.
Hmm? Nothing much. You know, complaining.
It's getting
mostly.
cold.
I was just mentioning how cold it is lately.
Yeah. And good thing he got that cool jacket, huh? I'm sure most of that'll come out with a little soap and water.
I'm fine.
Damn.
Hey,
Oh,
Clem,
Luke.
go over and see if you can change the bandages on Kenny's wound. I offered, but I don't think he was comfortable with me doing it. But you know him better than I do. Maybe he'll let you do it.
Okay.
Okay.
That a girl. That's gonna sting, but only for a second. It's gonna clean it.
Oh, I know what it does. It's gonna suck.
It's gotta get
Oh
done.
yeah.
Go
Don't
on.
listen to her.
You can do it.
Is antifreeze? I don't. No, it's not antifreeze. It's the same like, solution that I had to use when I got bit by a dog. Remember? Remember that scene
What do you think?
when Luke and them
Rebecca
locked me in the
mentioned she'd like
shed
name him
to
Alvin
die?
if it was a boy. I mean, Rebecca was so out of it, she hadn't settled on her name.
Yeah, that's pretty creative.
It ain't about being clever. It's about honoring a good man and giving the boy someone to look up to. Alvin Jr. it is. Do you like that?
I
Well,
love
think
it.
AJ approves. What do you
AJ.
got there? Because I think I'm all right. I mentioned it earlier.
Can I change your bandages?
You shouldn't have to do stuff like this.
Shouldn't have to do a lot of things.
All right. Let's get it over with. Hopefully it won't scare this little guy. Or you.
Is he gonna be bad?
So how's it look?
He's gonna die. He's not gonna die. He's not gonna die.
I still gonna be pretty when this heals?
Are you going to be okay?
Oh, I'll be fine, darling.
Kenny's a good
It'll
dad.
take a
Yeah,
lot more
Kenny
than
is a
couple
good
smacks
dad.
with the radio to take me out. So, I'm guessing this is gonna be the shitty part.
It might sting a little.
You think? Holy fucking hell.
You need to stop squirming.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. You're right.
Oh god. Slap it on there like the flex tape commercial
Sorry
guy.
about the language, Junior.
I love that commercial. It's so
I'm gonna
funny.
expect you to be more of a gentleman than I am. But man, is that smart.
It'll be tough. Just like his dad.
But Alvin didn't look
Kenny
it.
got fucked up. He really did.
That guy had a pair on him.
It's how fast you click.
You were
I
right
thought
about
she was
me
gonna
being
shove it in his eye. No.
I can't believe I was willing to
Honestly though, I
sacrifice
thought.
Alvin just to
Okay,
hold
I
on.
thought Kenny literally
Should've
got
saved
his
him sooner.
eye pulled out. Like
Got him
it was hollow. There's gonna be a
Now to
hole.
think about that.
But it's actually not that bad.
Every time
Like
I
he's
look
just
at
like super
Alvin Jr.
bruised. You know?
Alvin should be here, raising this boy. It should be him, not me.
The best thing you can do for Alvin and Rebecca is raise him right. Make sure
Yeah.
he's safe.
Make sure he's safe.
I intend to.
Oh, oh, Kenny's on father mode.
All done.
Thank you, sweetie.
Yep.
Are we ready to go?
Oh,
Let's head out.
This is actually like so wholesome here. Gently. I'm careful. I'm careful. Did she kill the Russian kid yet? No. I'm not gonna kill the Russian kid. You know? He's Ben. No, kill him? What do you mean kill him? But food? Okay, if he takes us to the food first, okay? Take us to the food first, and then, you know, I might consider sacrificing him. Maybe. Free hands and legs. Embrace. Maybe. What do you mean? He is the food? No, we're not gonna eat him.
I'm talking to you.
What? It's what?
What do you mean, what? The place you're fucking taking us.
He doesn't speak much English.
Yeah, no shit.
Arvo, is this where the supplies are? Where the food is?
Answer her, goddammit.
No, it's at the house. There's still more walk. Some more hours.
God damn it. I knew this was gonna happen.
What?
This guy fucked us.
He's throwing us off. Oh my god.
It's getting dark. Maybe we should stop for the night.
This is bullshit.
Relax.
Has
Don't
he
tell me
been
to
tricking
relax.
us?
He's lying. He's been lying this whole time.
Luke needs a break. We probably all do.
Look, I'll do whatever you guys want, okay? But I could use the rest.
It'd be
I call
safer to
right?
rest in there.
I call
where there's a
left
fence.
arm. Cut off his left arm.
Can we just try and have a calm, quiet night?
You know what?
Please.
At this
That
point,
sounds
I'm like
nice.
low-key down
Yeah.
to throw him off. Like,
Yeah, it does.
Oh, shit.
I called the nuts. Okay,
It's
mom.
alright, buddy. It's alright.
If we're staying, we should scout this place out.
Alright, y'all wait here. I'll go make sure this ain't some walker nest we're locking ourselves into.
I'll go with you.
Should I just dish them?
See
Dish
if
the Russian kid?
see if you can calm him down a bit. No, that's all.
You can have them. It's okay.
It's okay.
Boil it like chicken nuts. Okay. That's so
You're
weird.
natural.
It'd be like a forbidden kosher.
I think he likes you.
My
Calmed right
goodness.
down for you.
He's cute.
Cute.
Yeah, he is, isn't he? Most babies are pretty ugly this soon after being born.
That's true. They usually look like weird little aliens.
Here, I got him.
Come on over. It's safe.
Who knows? She might enjoy it. No. I'm an ass person, guys. Give me the ass, okay? The ass or the dice, okay? You know, I'll take either. If I offer and don't tell her,
Today's my
what do you
birthday.
mean? What do you mean?
Yes,
I
I
knew
can tell, at least.
it. Happy
Happy birthday, Luke.
Yeah, man. Happy birthday.
Thanks.
So, that makes you... what? 27?
That's right. I'm surprised you remembered. Sure as hell feel a lot older.
Don't even start that
27. That's old enough for
Got
me.
out of college 5 years ago. Feels like a million years. At
Aw.
least I don't have to worry about paying off them student loans.
I hear that. I'm
What
sure
did
there's
you
some
study?
asshole sitting on that paperwork, waiting to collect.
What did you study?
Majored in art history.
Oh my god, he's an art major?
That's cool.
Oh my god, he's just like me for real.
Sounds
for
like
real.
you majored in working in a coffee shop.
Pretty much.
Oh, stop it.
Yeah, that's
They get a minor in
actually.
agriculture. Keep the old man happy.
Oh, I almost forgot. We're saving it for a special occasion, and all it being your birthday and all.
Oh my
Figure.
goodness. We'll
This
give the
is as
fee
good
to
a
you,
time as
eh?
any.
Oh god. Is that a good idea?
I think that's a good idea.
Clementine.
I was gonna say
Shen.
Shen can have the butt cheek.
I think it's the best
Shen as
idea
the
I've
ass
got.
person. Would you
I'd
say
agree
you would
with
have you
I think she's
have an
just
ass?
saying to take
Oh.
it easy.
I
Right.
Oh yeah, you know, I don't want
Feel a little
to toot
guilty
my
picking the
horns, but
first
I
one.
think I have a
Wait.
pretty
You
fat,
gotta make a
juicy
choice.
ass. Okay.
I'm not really the,
Come on, birthday boy. It don't have to be fancy.
A toast means we all got something to drink.
Oh, we can just pass the bottle around afterwards. Go on.
Why are you guys getting drunk?
To the loved ones
Pickle
that
is
we've
a
lost
lie.
along the way. And to the hope that we see them again.
My goodness. Oh my
That was
god,
real nice.
that's right. Mom is in my closet.
I didn't mean for it to rhyme. That
Well, I got first watch.
I think the fence has got us pretty secure.
Can't be too careful.
The baby
Ooh.
might be cold.
Nah, I'll keep him warm. He's a tough little guy.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay, I remember from
Thank you.
last season. Do not let Kenny drink. Do
I'm
not
gonna
let
post
Kenny
up over
drink.
near the hole in the fence there. Holler if you need anything.
Thanks, Kenny.
Fire's real nice. Plenty of room if you want to get warm.
Maybe in a bit.
I didn't expect her to come back. Just when I thought I got her figured out, she up and surprises.
It's a good thing. You saved our ass.
I know. I just
I'm glad she's here.
don't know what she's getting at all this.
We're lucky to have her. I'm glad she's here.
Well, she helped us back there. So that puts her as okay in my book.
Well, it ain't no secret how you feel about her. Oh, come on. I'm just
God,
teasing.
Luke.
It was stupid.
I
Who's
understand.
that?
She's a pretty girl. Once you get
My
past
God,
the
that's a
first
blurb. That was a blurb.
I don't
I thought
know.
that was from the
Guess I
game.
just wanted to forget about all this shit for
I
like
thought
10
somebody was
minutes.
shooting, like
10
Kenny was
minutes.
shooting a gun or
Man, that's
something.
longer than I'd last at this point.
Hey,
All right.
So thank you for the
wasn't
blurb.
come on. We got a little one around.
Sorry. Forget I said anything.
It's my
I
fault
know
for
what you're
bringing
talking
it up.
about.
We know what you guys are talking about.
I certainly hope not.
We're talking about kissing stuff.
Yeah. Yes. That is exactly.
Was there any kissing?
You shut your mouth right now. The both of you.
No, Kenny got shot. Kenny did not get shot. Also, thank you for the blurb. He's in a game.
Maybe she came back for you.
Could be.
I don't
I come back
know
for
what
you.
to say to that.
I come back for you. You know what I mean.
Honestly, though, I think
Thank you,
Jane
Claire.
came back for
Do the
me.
same.
Honestly,
Luke's
not
ready
for
to pass
Luke,
him over.
for
Hey,
me.
shut up.
Don't be modest. Your moves are working on all the ladies.
Worked on me. Shit. I just did it too, didn't I?
Thank you for the blurb.
Sorry. It's the drink talking.
They say a drunk man's talk is a sober man's thoughts.
Well, I ain't a man, so they can take that shit somewhere else.
She came back for food.
Clem, go see if you can get Jane and Kenny over by the fire. It's too cold for them to be
Also,
out
thank you
there.
for the 10 bits.
Oh,
Mom,
here.
thank you.
Maybe a swig of this will change the mood.
She leaves the morning after. You don't know that. You don't know that. I think. Oh wait. Oh my god. Give it to. Should I give it to Kenny? Give it to Jane. I honestly think she came back for me. Cause Jane has a very what would I call it? Sister complex. You know?
They expect you to lure me over there with alcohol?
Okay, I back
I
to
wouldn't
like mode.
expect a
Don't
bottle
die.
to
Thank
last
you for
this
the
long.
like.
Probably been a while for everyone.
We just want you to feel welcome. It's warm over by the fire.
What is it?
It's rum.
Rum is pretty good. I like rum, guys.
I don't know. It might be awkward. I wasn't expecting to... You know.
Cause you made it with
Why?
Luke.
Because you made it with Luke.
What does that even mean? What's the it?
You know.
Yeah, because I made it with Luke.
It's not a big deal.
It's kind of cute.
Why does this feel like I'm signing a contract or something? That's really good. Have you had any? You want a sip? It's okay.
I'm a kid.
I'm a kid.
Okay then. Suit yourself. I wasn't
love
too much older than
Jane.
you when I had my first drink. God, I was so stupid back then. There was this time I broke into my parents' liquor cabinet and drank a whole bottle of this really spicy, sweet liquor. Oh, what was its name?
Fireball?
It was dumb. Earthquake or something.
Sounds like you were a bad kid.
I guess I was. At the bottom of the bottle, there were these sugar crystals, and I got it in my head that I really wanted to eat a couple. So I got the bright idea to smash it on my parents' dining room floor to get at them. And it shattered into 1,000 pieces, all over
What
the
a
bathroom.
mess.
Sounds like a mess.
Yeah, it was. Every couple years, someone would step on a piece of glass that didn't get swept up and get mad at me all over again. The problem with glass is, it looks a lot like sugar crystals.
That's never really been a problem for me.
Keep it that way. My sister found me, drunk, blood pouring out of my mouth. Jamie thought I was dying, so she called 911.
You
They
ate
pumped my
glass?
stomach.
You ate glass?
I ate glass.
That's insane.
I haven't thought about that in a long time.
Couldn't that kill you? Like, digesting glass? It rips up, like, your insides.
I guess a deal's a deal.
Internal bleeding.
Here. That guy needs a drink more than any of us.
Yes.
Time to not make it weird.
Glass cannot be broken down. Yeah, I see. No, I
Wanna sit
heard
here?
you can kill someone,
No,
but like just
I'm fine.
like smashing a bunch of glass.
Yeah,
Or, like
okay.
not
Wherever
very
you
fine,
like.
but like fine enough so that you could put them like in food, and then when that person eats it, you know, the glass is in the body, and then you know is like slowly killing them. You know. Talk to Kenny.
There, little guy. Shh. Shh, I got you. I got
Yes,
you.
it can. Woof. It's kind of scary, isn't it?
Oh, hey, Clem. Just, needed some air.
But it would be obvious
There's air
that it was you,
everywhere.
no? You cooked for them? I mean, it could have come from anywhere, you know?
I'm sorry.
Could have come
how
from
I acted
anywhere.
After Sarita was... I just...
You know, we could have,
I
like,
couldn't
you know,
handle
get
it.
takeout, you know?
I'm sorry.
And, whoops, what's
You
this
did
little
what
powder
you
I'm
could.
putting in the food?
You tried to help.
You know?
And I blamed you for it. I'm so sorry.
I could have done more.
No, don't say that.
I'm clipping this
You did
and showing it to
everything
your
you
next
could.
crush. I'm not gonna
sorry
kill
if
them,
anything
okay?
I said
I'm
made
only
you
a
feel
stalker,
any
okay,
different than
guys?
that.
I'm not a
Makes me
killer.
feel awful.
I'm just a stalker.
I know it can be a real shit sometimes.
Stop.
No, it's true. But I miss my boy. I miss him so much.
He misses Duck.
I didn't raise him like I should have. Made mistakes. Wasn't there a whole lot for a couple years. Off on a boat somewhere or other. I thought I enjoyed that time away from him. From my family. But I'd give anything for one more second with them. To play catch with Duck. To touch Katja's face.
Katja was nice
I
to
really
me.
liked Katja. She was one of the nicest people I've ever met.
She had a big heart. To get it broken like that, it was too much.
Oh my god, you're so pretty. I just want to make you smile.
It should have been too
What
much for
the heck, empty? No, I want to make you smile.
He's gonna get raised right. I won't make the
Go
same
away,
mistakes
get out of here.
You should get back over by the fire. Ain't no sense in both of us being over here. I can handle watch on my own.
Okay. Well, I understand if you want to be alone
Get a
for
room.
while. I get that way too sometimes.
Katja mama. I love
Thanks,
Katja.
Clem.
She was, oh my god. The fact that she died was so sad, you know? She was such a great asset to the group. Now we leave. Wait, where's Arvo?
I miss TV. Feels like forever since we had electricity.
Oh, he's right here.
Jane, you don't have to justify that with a response.
Hey, I find it's best to just get this stuff out in the open. Less drama.
Well, that's fine. But I can confirm there was no time for kissing.
I was told that a few nights ago.
All right.
Yeah,
enough
Buns
of
has a secret lady
Hey,
that he's very happy about. He's been
nice to
telling
hear
me
people
about
laughing.
You just spend so much time trying to stay alive.
I forgot what I did one time, but I ended up with glass
You don't get a chance to enjoy living.
on side inside my mouth. I made sure to rinse it with water several times. It was a small
Alcohol
stress like
helps.
glass and scary
Oh, yeah,
situation,
it
but I
does.
kept calm. I think I was messing around with a shock. What? That's scary. What? Oh my god.
Let me get that bottle. We got someone else that might need some
That's
help.
honestly so scary. Especially inside your mouth.
Yeah,
Oh my
alright.
god.
Looks like he could use it.
For telling someone, I would chase them like Naruto would chase. Oh god.
Sorry, okay? My fault. I shouldn't have.
God damn, Kenny! Bro, Kenny.
Jesus, Kenny.
Shit, this is it.
You knocked the
Oh,
kid out.
it was a
What was I
different
supposed
girl,
to
Mom?
do? He was
Holy
screaming
crap.
bloody murder. What the hell'd you rile him up for?
He was tied up.
So? What's that got to do with anything?
It was under control. You knocked him out with a gun.
I was just reacting. I didn't have time to... Fuck!
You didn't have to hit him.
I didn't want him hurting anybody.
It's been a long day. We should rest
Goddamn.
up.
That kid was
Womp.
defenseless.
I know,
Womp,
but
womp
we can't do
indeed.
nothing about that now. Let's just get a little rest. Will you take first watch? I mean, I can if you don't
All
want
right.
Oh. Everyone's so
Come on,
angry.
Kenny. Let's go get some sleep.
Okay.
Defenseless. Okay, he didn't
Everybody
have to
rest
get,
up.
you
Who
know,
knows how long the walk we
punched.
got tomorrow?
He was tied up. He was tied up. He was just shouting. It was self-defense against a defenseless person. His sister is fucking dead. Yeah, his sister is dead. Natasha. Womp womp. You know, cry about it. Arvo. Bro was named after.
You sure you're good?
Yeah, I'm good. If I
What
start
is
to crap out, I'll
it?
let you know.
A freaking
Okay, you do
a
that.
gas station.
No trouble.
How much further?
Close. Very close.
You've been saying that every time I ask.
Please. Come.
I'm really starting to think you're full of shit.
It can't be much further.
Kenny, look out!
What the fuck? Ah!
No, is he bit?
Jesus Christ.
That was close.
Fucker came out of nowhere.
That was real loud. Hopefully there aren't more of them.
Yeah, well, let's move. We don't want to be around.
Lady,
to
that's
find out.
Arco.
He's very close.
Nice, huh?
Come.
No, they call it like in Australia, they call it an Arvo, right? Or am I tripping?
There.
That piece of shit? It's half built.
Arvo's. Ow!
We're here for the supplies, not the house.
warm.
Never mind. Never
Fireplace.
mind.
Very
Never
warm.
mind. Never
just like a
mind.
place to sit
Never
with the
mind. Never mind.
Are we just gonna walk over?
Anyway, guys, topic change. Wow, look at that scenery, guys. Look at that. It's so beautiful, right?
Maybe there's a way around.
Oh wow, it's
I don't see any.
amazing. It's
Можно
just
идти.
great.
Там
Say
твердый
it in
лед.
American, asshole.
It's okay.
Say it
Look.
in American.
Ice.
No shit ice. That's the problem.
Yeah, I know. I
He's saying
missed
it's
it.
fine.
It's okay.
I go first. I can be
Bro.
front.
We need to spread out. just to be safe.
I don't know what to say there.
Less weight, the better.
It's okay.
Let the
It's
Rusty
fine.
go
It's
first,
okay.
since he's so confident.
It's okay.
Couldn't we just go around? I feel like walking on ice is kind of dangerous. You know? Okay, anything? It's so quiet. Uh-oh.
We're okay. Don't worry.
No! Is Luke gonna die?
We got some walkers behind us.
There's only a few of them. We should be all right.
Let's just get to the house.
Hey, stay with us.
Fuck!
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
That's two less to deal with.
Just stay spread out and we'll be fine.
Hey!
Oh! He's making a run for it!
Shit!
Yo!
He's gonna kill him.
Bro has one working leg!
Shit.
And he's quicker than you? Oh my god.
I should let you drown, you piece of shit.
Stop him, Kenny!
Well, they made it.
Okay. Uh-oh. No! No, Luke! No, no.
Don't come over here. Hey, I can make it. It's fine.
You sure?
Yeah.
So, why wouldn't they just...
on the way.
That's what I said!
for both of
That's
us.
what I said, like, just literally land there, you know?
Stop! Stop!
Just literally land, like,
fine.
literally
I'm
right
fine.
around.
No, you're not.
I just gotta pull myself out.
You need help, Luke!
The ice is too thin. I got it.
You need to help.
No!
Clem,
You're
go!
gonna fall through.
Go help
No,
him.
Clem,
Clem,
do not.
just go back for him. You're light. You
Stop
can do it.
telling her that. Clem, look at me. Pull out your gun and shoot those damn walkers.
Okay.
Just give me a little time.
Clem,
Okay.
you can make it, but you need to go.
Thanks.
I cover Luke. I
I'll be out
cover
in a
Luke.
sec. Just keep shooting.
Crow, damn it!
You're not gonna make it.
My
He's
leg.
gonna make it! I trust Luke!
I just need
Hold
him.
on, I got you.
Rest a sec.
Keep him off us,
No,
Clem.
no, it's too much. Too
Shut
much
up!
weight.
Shut the fuck up!
Go back.
I can
No,
save
get
you.
away! Oh my god, why is she helping him? Why is she helping him? I hate her. I hate her. See this? I knew Bonnie was a liability. I knew it was. See, I knew she was. It's our fault. It's always her fault. It's always her fault. I swear to God.
It's too late.
It's not too late.
Nothing more you can do.
No! Look! No! Bring it back out! No! Luke!
It's okay, I got you. Come on. Come on, you're gonna
No,
be
no,
okay.
you can see
Go.
people.
To the house. We need a fire.
Of course she lives! Of course she lives!
Fuck, she's gonna fucking freeze to death.
It's all your fault, Bonnie! It's all your fault! All you have to do is listen! Oh my god. I can't.
How the fuck did that happen?
God, it's always the best character that dies. No, God.
There's a fireplace.
It's always her fault. Oh my god.
have to get some more.
Throw her to
We're gonna
the
freeze to
zombies.
death.
Goodness gracious.
He's just gone. Luke's fucking gone.
Oh my god.
He should have gone around.
God damn it.
It's my
He should
fault.
have just fucking gone around.
My fault. I should have stayed with him.
Once that ice started to go, there wasn't nothing any of us could do.
Oh god.
Don't listen to her, Clem. This ain't on you.
I hate her. I hate her. I hate Bonnie.
You
I
son
hate
of a
Bonnie.
bitch. This is
Bonnie, you
your
could have
fucking
just
fault.
listened to me.
Kenny, don't, man.
Don't what?
It's nobody's damn fault.
I'm freezing. Can we just get a fire started?
Oh god.
Look at this place.
Oh my god. And
Just
then
a
always a
stack of
useless
fucking
kid.
toothpicks.
Blood boiling
But
and
those
it doesn't
magical
hydrate.
supplies are bullshit too.
Oh my
What?
god.
No speaking of English?
Fuck you.
Tommy piece of shit.
Fuck you.
Oh my god.
What the fuck?
Kenny, stop it.
Stop it!
God. Help me. Somebody help me. Stop beating him up. I'm gonna freeze. Oh god. Jesus Christ.
What did you do to him? There's another just like it. He wasn't lying.
Oh my goodness. Oh, my turn.
You want to tell me
Oh my
how a can of
god.
fucking chili is gonna help
How
the
is
baby?
beating a kid to death gonna help anyone?
This is your fault, and you damn well.
Okay, Miss Bonnie. Look at you blaming everyone. It's your fault. It's literally Bonnie's fault. Okay.
I'm tying him up.
Okay, she was the start of everything.
Fine.
Okay, she was the reason we all got captured.
Mike,
Even
help
though
me get a
we
fire started.
helped
You
her.
okay?
That still drives
He's
me
hurt
nuts.
real
Oh my
bad.
god.
Mike,
She was the reason everybody died.
Yeah.
Okay? She's the reason Luke is dead. Jesus.
Got a light?
I
hate
thought
Bonnie.
I had matches.
He should have died. My goodness.
You kept it.
God damn. No, Luke. I tried so hard to keep him alive. Oh god. No, I can't hear him like his sexy talk anymore. It's so sad.
Let me take a look at you, kid.
Jesus. He could have killed you. The fuck is wrong with him?
You're up. Kenny's out back trying to get some stupid truck started.
Damn.
Here,
Should I go
you
talk
should
to
eat
Kenny?
something.
You okay?
Thank you.
Oh god, eating out of a can
I can't
again.
believe he's gone.
Am I gonna get bit by a dog again?
I've lost people before, but it just hasn't felt this shitty in a while.
He was a great
He
guy.
was a great guy.
God damn it. I shouldn't have come back.
Oh.
I knew this would happen. I knew it.
Well, I'm glad you did.
Oh, look at her
I'm
smiling.
gonna find something to clean that up.
Thank you. Thank you.
I can't take this shit anymore.
I mean, nobody wants to admit they ate 9 cans of ravioli, but I did.
Feeling better?
Yeah.
Hell of a day.
For the blurb.
But we
Said
gotta get
Simpson
moving.
for the characters that died.
you feeling up to
Okay, it's not like I
Stand out
choose
back with this
to.
truck.
I do choose to. But
This
it's not
house ain't
like I
worth
wanted
crap,
them to
but
die.
The vehicles ain't in bad shape. With a little luck, we can get one fixed up. Be out of here by nightfall. I'll wait for you out back.
Also, thank you for the follow. Thank you. I ate the come for you
I'll
too.
watch him.
Huh? Welcome. Welcome in. I ate the come for you too. welcome, welcome. How are you? How's your day? So look at both situations with Luke at the lake. You see, does he die regardless? Does he die regardless? Should have shot her before shooting the last zombie. God, I don't think. I mean, I would if I could. I would if I could. You know? Why so energetic? Oh, because I got the synergy in me. You know?
What did she say?
You shouldn't have done that to Arvo.
Should have done it to Arvo.
I know, Clem, but Luke.
I don't care.
He dies either way, but if you.
Jesus, Clem.
But if you would have went to help him instead of covering,
you scared me.
Seen...
You scared all of us, Kenny.
You would seem more heroic.
It won't happen again. That's a promise.
Damn, but he dies regardless. I wanted Luke to live.
It's over. But AJ needs us now.
Then all the good people
all right?
dies. Except for Kenny.
Come on. Let's see if the truck's gonna go.
Is this your first playthrough? Yeah, this is my first playthrough.
My daddy always had a half-dozen wrecks he was fixing up.
So, Sen, I have a cousin named Luke.
But he taught me respect.
Is his last name
Girl
Skywalker?
Like Jane. Learned a thing or two about that.
Ugh, give her some time.
I like her. Just give her some time.
Maybe you're right.
She got everyone killed. Okay, I didn't get everyone killed. Okay, I tried my best to save them.
Jane
They
helped
just
us
happened
back on the
to,
road.
you know. They just happened to, you know, like.
All right.
Die.
Give it a turn.
Give it a turn, okay. No. So if you went to go help the then walkers would have caught up and y'all will fall through, and then before Walker grabs you underwater, then Luke grabs it, then another grabs his leg and drag him down. What? Oh my god.
Wellington's gotta be out there. Those rumors can't all be bunk. I mean, hell, there's gotta be something out here other than snow and goddamn Euro trash.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me.
We're gonna make it, Clem. I know it.
No, but he is named Luke. Ah, I see, I see. Oh, they tried disabling graphics black from video settings and it will improve the colorization. Oh, I see, I see. I'll probably do that like next.
Did you turn it?
Extreme.
Yes.
God damn it!
Kenny, no. Are you okay?
Kenny, are you okay?
We gotta get moving if we're gonna keep
So it's
AJ
07
alive.
for Luke either way? Yeah,
running
it's
out of
a 07 for Luke either way then.
I gotta get this thing to start.
Dude, I like Luke though. I love him.
Go on inside. I don't like leaving him with that girl.
So thank you for the bunk. Thank you, thank you. And look at this. She's smoking. Bonnie is smoking. Where did she get the cigarette? It's simp for Luke, even he dies it away.
They'd finish this place.
Yep, exactly. She would have done the Uwe song for him. Hey, you're not wrong, okay? You're not wrong about that.
What do you want?
I just wanted to see how you were.
How do you think? It must be nice being a pretty little girl. No one ever expects you to do a damn thing. You and I both know you had a chance.
Should I hit us a ooh?
You and I both.
Was that good? I don't know. I haven't done that in so so long. so long. Okay, I hate Bonnie. I'm not even kidding. I hate Bonnie. I I hate her so much. Ugh. Generator?
Looks broken.
Window? Oh, house?
Looks like it's about to collapse.
Oh yeah, also Bonnie is blaming you for Luke's dead now because you covered for him. Because I listened to... I was listening to Luke, okay? I trusted him. She was the one who did not trust us, okay? You know? God, it's not like... I don't know. I hate Bonnie, okay? Jane.
Hey.
Hello.
Mike and Arvo wouldn't shut up, so I moved him in here.
That's it. I'm saving for another Uber coverage fight. Don't you dare.
Seen that look before.
Son of a bitch.
He'll be fine.
Clem, he beat that
Also, you
boy
could have let her die by not breaking the ice for
We're
Luke.
way past fine.
Really? She could have died?
I know Kenny's a nice guy.
God damn.
Clem.
It's okay. I wanted to
Carver
save
was
Luke.
a nice guy too.
It's fine. It's fine.
Probably had a nice job, a nice, pretty wife. Then all this happened. And one day he caved some kid's face in and realized he could sleep at night.
Kenny is a
Kenny
carver.
isn't Carver. He just made a mistake.
All I'm saying is, start thinking about what happens if you're wrong.
No, I'm right. I know Kenny.
You two have known each other a long time. Sooner or later, you're gonna have to decide how much that's worth.
God damn, why is everyone trying
I think it needs food
to
or
manipulate me? That like Kenny's a bad guy. I don't think Kenny's a bad guy. He's just troubled, you know. I'm at 6.9k towards the Uwu cover.
Seems like you've done that.
You know,
before.
now's a great time to use it. You know, have you tried all the other ones?
I guess we're getting close.
He's gonna be like
That's
a
what
little
worries
brother
me.
to me. AJ. I'm
There's
saving for
not
when I
much
can
left.
keep Shen in my basement.
I was running with some people a long time ago, down near
Damn.
DC. Some guy got trapped.
I have
in a little
actually.
crosswalk.
Oof.
Can't remember his name.
Have you tried the new ones I
He's
got? You know,
probably
like
Mary
taking off
Jane.
my coat. You know,
He's
if
a
you want to take off
douchebag.
my coat, you know, like
Anyway,
you want to change
the
my
dick got
outfit.
stuck
You
under
know,
a car
wink,
heading for a
wink.
dozen walkers. One after another, they went down there trying to save him. Lost 4 people before we got him out.
Oh.
They had to try, right?
They had to try. No?
Didn't find out till later he was already bit. Turned and ripped the neck right out of this old lady. The look on her face was... she was just staring up at the sky, like she was watching a bird. Look, Clem.
He got it working.
Does that mean you can leave? Nah, I saw all of that last stream. Can I strip you IRL? No, I mean,
It works?
no one can see. I mean, you're
tell
close. Hey, yo,
So
chill,
what's the
chill.
How much food do we have?
At least a week.
And for the baby?
Let's just get out of the snow.
Yeah, we gotta get out of the snow.
I agree. We should head back south.
What?
We're gonna freeze to death.
I don't know where I'm going
I
with
know
this
how
day,
stupid
so
the
I'll
idea
just
was to
retract
march up here in
everything.
the first place. It was a bad-
She's right.
What if we went back to house?
Wait, what? Fuck that. I was thinking more like Texas.
Texas? The fuck?
It was just an idea.
We already talked about this.
I'm sorry. We did?
We're going to find Wellington. Right, Clem?
Wellington?
Kenny, it's freezing up here, man.
It's only gonna
God,
get worse.
God, I don't want to think.
We're not going back.
Nah, man, this is fucking nuts.
We don't have to leave right now. Let's just sleep on it.
Well, that sounds sensible.
Damn it, we don't have time.
Says you.
Look, I don't give
Says
two
you.
shits about what you people think. I
Never
got
fuck
this covered.
Arvo.
So I say where we go.
Arvo
and
is
we're
not a
heading
punchy
fucking
bag,
north.
okay? He's
Especially
still a
as we gotta help an
person.
AJ.
What about Arbo?
Who? Oh, the Rusky? Yeah, he ain't coming with us.
You're just gonna leave him here?
I don't give a good goddamn where he goes.
You should ask
He's
him.
done.
We should ask him what he wants.
There's a concept.
He knows the area. He can help us.
Oh yeah, some help he's been. He got Luke killed.
I ain't gonna say he
My
helped us,
lawyer has told me
but maybe if he eased up
to
on
not
him before, he
comment
wouldn't have run
further.
away in the first place. You ever think about that, Kenny?
Either way, I'm not going anywhere in the middle of the night.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, I
It
feel
could be a
like we
hurt out.
should leave when
You want that child's blood
it's
on your
still
hands,
like
Mike?
We're all
daylight.
gonna die out here if
You
you don't
know?
calm the fuck down, Kenny.
Haven't we been through enough for one day?
Jesus fucking Christ. Remember the last time we had a working car and sat around on our asses, Clem?
I'm going inside.
God, Arvo isn't pushing back now. He's just a kid. Are you okay?
Kenny, are you okay?
Is he gonna leave? Please don't leave, Kenny. I already lost Luke. Please.
You better talk some sense into him. For his sake.
It's like high. It's like high school for Arvo all over again. Oh no.
Get the fuck out of here!
It's me.
Clem. Sorry, just give me a second.
Is your eye okay?
Close the door. Can you believe this, Clem? I bring them a working truck, and they act like I just shit in their cereal.
Leave his
I knew
in? I'll
Jane
do
had
it.
to stick up her ass, but I thought at least Mike would have more sense.
Why can't we just
He's
leave
turned
tomorrow?
out to be a real disappointment.
Well, why can't we just leave tomorrow?
Look, we got maybe a day's worth of food for that kid left. That's it. Clem, think about Rebecca and Alvin. I mean, what if Lee hadn't gone tearing across half of Georgia looking for you? A lot of folks
throwing the
died to
Lee
make that
card.
happen. A lot of folks died to get us this far. We owe it to them to see
No,
this
you're right.
done.
I know.
No, he
You're
threw
right.
the Lee
Someone's gotta
card.
keep this group together. That kid's depending on us. I wish Lee was here.
No! Stop mentioning him.
I'd say.
Keep the group together.
I think he'd tell me to try to keep the group together. And that we should keep moving.
I think you're right.
No,
We
it's so
can't just
sad.
give up on this kid. I mean, what's the point of going on after that? That's what people like Lee knew, and what people like Jane won't ever understand. Look, I know Wellington might be bullshit, but where there's smoke, there's fire. Krista heard about it too, right?
Krista, I totally forgot about her.
first saw you
Is she
back in
even
that
still
box,
alive? I don't think she's
I was
alive.
dreaming. And when you sat down next to me and we shared that meal, well, I could tell that you were different now, grown up. I felt pride, a pride I hadn't felt in a long time. But I need you now, Clem. There have to be folks doing better than us. It's the only chance that child has.
Something has to be out here. We'll find it, Kenny.
I knew I could count on you, Clem. Look, we'll figure everything out in the morning. Come on, let's get some sleep. So we gotta be ready.
Oh god, this is so heart-wrenching. I feel so bad for Kenny. What is that noise? Okay. Thank you for the blurb. Thank you, thank you. What are they doing? What are they doing? Mike?
Easy. Easy now.
Step back.
Clem. Shit.
What are you doing?
I got the rest of it.
They're gonna leave us? They were gonna leave us.
Now keep it down.
Nah.
Slow down. Let's talk about this, Mike.
There's nothing to talk about.
Nah, that's messed up. That's messed up.
Clem, okay?
That's just messed up.
Damn it, we don't have time for this.
Come on, Mike. Let's just
That's so effed up. What the hell? It's all Bonnie's fault.
All right, Clem. Now I'm gonna walk up to you nice and slow, and you're gonna give me the gun, okay?
Why are you doing this?
He didn't give us any choice.
Он злой человек.
I'm sorry.
Bonnie being a homewrecker again, right?
Just give me the gun, Clem.
Bonnie being a homewrecker again.
I'm not gonna hurt you.
I'll shoot.
I'll shoot. I will shoot.
Go.
I will actually shoot. You're not taking my gun.
It's fine. Just
No! He shot me!
Clem. Jesus.
See what she guys did! Oh my god!
Just leave her.
What do you mean just leave her? I helped you so much, Bonnie.
Clint.
Oh my god!
What did you do?
What did you do?
No, this is so effed up. Is that the end? This better not be the end. What the heck?
Clementine.
No, this is gonna make me cry. No. Oh my god.
Lee?
It's just a
I blame Shen. No, what? I blame myself too now. Should have killed Arvo. Oh my god.
What was it about?
Ben.
Duck?
He's
God. Should have killed Arvo.
We don't know how this works yet. Maybe it's like a cold.
Nah, that's effed up. That's
Mom's
so
a doctor.
effed up.
Maybe she can help him. When I was a kid, I never got sick. But my brother always had something.
maybe.
God.
We just gotta hope for the best. Not too many other
Thank you
options.
for the redeem. Is my redeems working? Are they not working?
I feel bad.
Have they not been working this whole time?
I called him a crybaby.
Is it just
And
me?
I hid the bug in his pillow.
God.
Oh, that's okay, honey. You didn't mean it.
Yeah, we could have gotten free food. Oh God. Oh, you're so right. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, why they did this flashback? I know. It's so sad. It's so sad. I miss
don't
Lee so much.
She was sad, Clem. That can make people angry sometimes.
Have you ever been that angry?
Oh God. See, Shane, you should have listened to the cannibal.
One time.
God. Oh my God, you're right. You're right.
Clem, people don't
Wait, there
always
goes my
make
uwu
sense.
cover poison.
How come?
Oh God.
Because bad things happen to everyone. And it's hard to keep being yourself after they do. Do you think we should have let Lily stay?
Oof. Oof. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I if we did the right thing.
How can you tell?
Well, it's not like
Thank you for the
that.
redeem. Thank
Sometimes
you.
it just isn't the right answer.
You don't get to wear that one anymore. You did it. Your hands.
But part of growing up is doing what's best for the people you care about, even if sometimes that means hurting someone else.
I don't want to hurt anyone.
Oh, Clementine.
It's not that easy.
I'm scared, Lee.
What can I tell you to make it better?
That you won't leave.
Oh, I wouldn't do that. I promise. Everything's gonna be all right.
No, Clementine, don't cry. No, this is so sad. Jesus. Yes, goddamn it, Didi. Oh my
Let's try
god.
to get some sleep.
Oh god.
Okay, Lee.
Why is this so sad? Stop cutting onions, shit. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Thank you for the flame. Thank you, thank you.
On the left. Slow down.
Shut up.
Oh my god. Wait, it's Jane and
She's
Kenny.
awake.
What happened to the other guys?
Hey, you.
Clem. Oh, thank God.
You passed out from the shock.
What happened?
What happened?
That piece of shit Rusty shot you.
We had to run the truck to keep you warm. How do you feel?
It hurts.
Wait, we went to the
Couldn't
rest.
find the bullet. Must have gone clean through. It'll burn a while, but you'll be fine.
Those sons of bitches.
Oh my god, when I buff a heart,
expected
yeah, on my
Russian.
shoulder, on my
Mine?
freaking shoulder.
I could tell they were working on something.
I didn't think they'd go that far.
Yeah, well, who would steal our food and shoot a kid? We never should have thrown in with trash like that in the first place.
I can't believe they did that.
I don't think they knew what they were doing, except trying to get away.
Yeah, well,
my
they're
God.
gone now. Good fucking
Shit, her shoulder blade was her
Now
as
that
well.
Clem's awake, we should
Right?
talk about where we're
Oh
going.
my
We're headed
god.
north.
What, to find Wellington?
You sure talk a lot of shit, but you got a better
I
plan?
low-key,
We
guys, I
head
talked
south,
about this with
back
Mr.
to
Fred
house.
before, but I
Carver's
low-key
camp.
wanna
The fuck
wanna
kind
get
of plan
shot.
is
Like
that?
just to
I think Bonnie
experience
said there
it,
was
you
no
know?
formula back
Is it
there.
just me?
And we actually know where it is.
And it was overrun by a damn herd.
I don't care where we go. Just please, stop arguing.
She's the one that's going off.
Because you won't listen to a thing I'm saying.
What's that? You're talking into my bad ears?
Look at the road! Look at the road!
Jackass.
Oh, I still can't hear you.
Look, even if there is someplace up here, it could take us weeks to find it. We could get back to Howe's in a day.
Tell you what, we can turn around just as soon as you pry this wheel from my cold, dead fingers. How's that sound?
Whatever. I give up.
Get your feet off the dash.
God.
Let's play a game, Clem. I spy with my little eye an asshole. Your turn.
Grow up.
Go to hell.
I'll pull this fucking car over.
Go ahead.
You guys are being children!
Me? I couldn't see the damn road.
Bet you're having trouble seeing light.
You shut your fucking
Oh
mouth.
my god! Oh my god! That cat actually crashed!
Fuck you.
Oh my
you don't
god.
know a damn thing about me.
Oh, I know exactly.
Thank you for the flame!
Nobody cares about you. And you don't care about me.
Oh, you gonna
but
shoot
yourself.
me, Mom?
That makes you nothing.
What is it with you? It's your family, right?
Don't.
It is, isn't it?
I'm warning you, you little shit.
You're just another type A asshole trying to save a bunch of dead people.
Shut up, both of you!
Both of you.
Stay out of this, Clem.
Don't tell her what to do.
You listen to me. You mouth off about my family, and I will fucking end you.
Jesus Christ, I'm so sick of this wounded warrior crap. Just pull over. I can't take this.
What? Running away again? What a fucking shocker. In the end, still only care about yourself, right?
Oh my god!
And where were you when Sarita died, Kenny? Huh? Where were you?
I was there. I couldn't God damn you, I love that woman!
This is nobody's
who
fault.
died is anyone's fault. We all wanted to be together, and it just went bad. But we owe it to them to try to make the best of this.
I'm sorry, Clem, but I can't put up with this bullshit anymore.
Oh, the feeling's mutual.
You know the thing about people
Oh
like
my
you,
God.
Kenny? You're just a bomb waiting to go off.
What can I do
Everyone
here?
talks about you behind your back because they're afraid of you.
That ain't true.
Mike, Bonnie,
Bros turned into
Sarita?
Trevor.
Lie, that ain't true!
Everyone around you knows that sooner or later
Okay, I
they're
love
gonna end up
Trevor.
dead.
Trevor was
Sarita knew it,
hilarious.
I know it, and so does Clementine.
I told you not to talk about my family!
Fuck you!
You fucking piece of shit!
Go to hell, you son of a bitch!
Jesus!
Holy
You okay?
I'm fine.
God.
How's AJ?
He's fine.
You sure?
Yes.
Clem, you alright?
Turn the wheel, fucking.
Kenny, I'm...
Wait, hold on.
Go around.
One of them
Okay,
might
Kenny-
have diesel.
We shouldn't
Kenny
stop.
gotta
We're
watch the
running on
road.
fumes. Got no choice. When I holler it's okay, drive up closer. Anything happens, I'll try to meet you there.
Okay.
Right?
I'm
If
going
you're
with
going,
you.
go now.
Kenny,
Oh. Slam the door right on my face. Wait, I'm driving?
Asshole. God. I can't do this anymore. I'm
I'm
serious.
driving? Oh my god. You're both
I
losing
tried,
it.
but I just can't.
you're both losing it.
Clem, everyone's like that around him. You know that. Clem, we could leave. Right now.
No,
Are
I
you serious?
can't.
What about AJ?
Look, I know you're close to him, but Kenny would never let him go. This is our chance, Clem.
No, we're not gonna
Don't you
leave
ever wanna know what it's like to live
Kenny.
your own
No. Ken.
It's snowing. Why are they moving?
They must not be cold enough yet. Fuck.
Oh my god.
Get us out of here! I don't know how to drive.
See that pedal on the floor? Step on it. Don't just sit there.
No! I don't wanna leave Kenny! Am I gonna leave Kenny?
Jesus.
Holy crap. This is what happens when you let the kid drive! Welcome in, Havoc! Thank you for the raid!
The door is stuck.
Welcome!
Shit. Shit. There are more of them. Move.
How's this stream, Havoc? How was it?
Clem, hurry.
Okay, I'm going.
Get out. Hurry.
Jane,
He's like a Terminator, he'll be back. Yeah, Kenny got plot armor.
wait.
There's no way Kenny dies. Oh. He just left me? Oh my god. Jane.
Jane,
Hashtag clapping them cheeks. Welcome in, JJ. Welcome, welcome. How are you? Welcome in, Super Megami. Alyssa, welcome in, Alyssa. Welcome in, Havoc. Welcome, welcome. How was your stream? How are you? Oh, what's happening here?
I climbed to the butthole before it was opened all the way. Oh god.
Did Kenny shoot himself? I don't think so. I think Kenny was fighting like zombies or something. I don't know. That's why I want to. That's why I want to be. How are you doing? I'm doing great. I'm doing good. Right now we're at the very last chapter of The Walking Dead season 2. Like at the very end, and I'm like, everything's getting so intense. So many people died, and like, I don't know what to do now. I don't know what to do. I got shots. Okay, that's a zombie. Can I shoot it? No, I can't shoot it. Oh my god, they killed Kenny, you bastard! Yes! I thought Kenny died like the first season. Turns out he was alive. And then every single time we get into a fight, Kenny almost dies. But then he keeps coming back alive. breathing stream was good. The puzzle hurt my brain. So many balls and holes. That's great, Havoc. That's great. Wait, this one's frozen, no? Oh, no, it's not. Now I gotta find Kenny. Or Jane? Oh my goodness. I know what you gotta do. You gotta walk around killing zombies until the zombies eat you. Now that's basically the premise of the game. Killing zombie, walk around, drama. Could enter here? Okay. No, am I gonna be alone again? Oh god. Or even worse, Jane and Kenny? No, no, no way. No way.
Jane?
Kenny!
You all
See,
right?
I knew it! Kenny got plot armor! He just never
Where's the
dies.
kid?
He's with her.
You left him with her? Jane?
No, Kenny! He
Jane!
just loses everything. I feel so bad.
Wait,
Oh, thank Christ. Jane, you okay? Where's the kid? Jane, where is he?
Where's the kid? Where is he?
where is he?
He's... No!
What are you saying? No. No!
No, not again. Not again.
What?
Clem, look at me. No matter what happens, just stay out of it. Okay?
Stay out of what?
Stay out of what?
No, is she lying just to get Kenny killed?
You have to trust me. We're gonna see what he really is.
No! That is gaslighting! That is gaslighting!
Penny, calm down. Don't do anything stupid.
Get out of my way.
Penny?
No, she's literally gaslighting, manipulating!
Kill him!
Girl bossing! Oh my god.
I won't back down from you, Kenny.
Shut up!
Kenny, let her talk.
I'm done talking, Clem.
Clem, stay back.
No, stop!
Don't you come near me, you son of a bitch.
Penny! Get the fuck off!
Fuck you!
No, what? Please stop!
Please!
Oh my god. Are you...
Let...
Stop! Jimmy!
Oh my god!
No! Please!
Piece of shit!
Just go.
I ain't
Give it to
going
now, give it to
nowhere.
Fucking psycho.
Run!
Not happening.
Please.
Oh.
No, please! Welcome in, Rich! Welcome! Better late than never! No! Why are you doing that? He's had enough! This is some really rough sex.
Listen to me!
Stop!
Fucking baby killer!
No, do I have to choose?
Damn it!
Do I have to choose? Holy.
I'll fucking kill you!
I knew you would!
Okay. Oh no! No! Okay. sorry. I'm sorry. It's for the baby. I gotta think about the baby. I gotta think about the baby.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
I hate her so much.
Yeah,
I hate her so much. You didn't have to do all of that. Literally. Oh my god. Literally.
You made the right choice.
No, don't do this to me,
I'll let
Kenny,
you down.
please. I didn't want to kill you.
No, it's my fault.
No, you did what you had to. You don't ever
God.
have to apologize.
That Kenny was on his last legs. Yeah, Kenny was really on his last legs.
We almost made it. We were close, weren't we?
Oh God.
I thought I wanted this, asked for it so many times. Now that it's happening.
But there's our food. Stop.
I'm afraid, Clem.
It's okay, Kenny. You're going to see Katja and Doug.
Oh
You're
God.
going to see them again.
This is so sad.
Always good
Oh my
for a
God.
smile.
Castle shit. I'll follow. Pipe bomb. Oh my God. Jesus Christ. No. This is so sad. Okay. No! Kenny's dead! Kenny's dead. I hate her. I hate her so much. I hate her so much. I hate her so much. Literally. Literally, the baby was the whole reason why Kenny reacts, you know? And like, if Kenny knew the baby was alright, he wouldn't have crashed out, you know? Like, God, logic! I swear to God.
I understand if you're upset. AJ was never in any danger. I was just going to try to talk you into coming with me. I just thought if you saw Kenny like that, you'd know we'd have to leave him. Look, Clem, I'm
You're
sorry.
fucking crazy!
You're fucking crazy. How could you do this?
Oh
I had to do
God.
it, Clem.
Should that bitch down?
You saw how he
Oh, God.
reacted. I had to show you what he was capable of.
So you put AJ in danger and got my friend killed just to prove a point?
It was a
Just to
stupid
prove a
plan.
point. Ugh, damn.
I should never have lied to you. But I thought it was the only way you'd see.
I hate her so much. I hate her so
my
much.
Kenny,
you have to forgive me. Please. We can just leave all this behind
Oh my
us.
God.
Please. I did it for you, Clem.
I'm not going anywhere with
For
you.
us.
I'm not going anywhere with you.
I'm sorry. You're fucking crazy.
Clem.
You're fucking crazy, Jane. I swear.
I did this for you. I can't do this alone. Okay? Is that what you want to hear?
Yeah, I'm leaving her behind. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Clem?
God, take your kneecap. Damn. It's all her fault. It's literally all her fault. Why is everybody so stupid? I swear. Everyone's so dumb. Gotta be real though, Lee raised. Yeah, exactly, right? She's doing the exact same thing that we did to Lily. She's a liability. Damn. Oh God. People are stupid because they need drama. That is true. So heavy. It's so heavy. Everyone's malnourished, everyone became stupid. Yeah. The only person with logic here is Clem. Literally Clem. You know why? She learned from the best. Lee! Oh my god! Damn. Oh my gosh, Clementine! No, is that how it ends? Is that how it ends? Oh my god! Oh my god! I can't do this. Oh god. Wow! 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 That's crazy! This is insane right here. This is insane. In the end, who are you with? You and 25% of players are alone with AJ. Nah, that's insane! People actually stay with Jane? What? What? Why? Oh my gosh, she's crazy. Also, thank you for the head pass. Thank you for the hydrate. Thank you. Oh my god. Yeah, I'm in the minority. I thought a lot of... Okay. I thought more people would have went, like, alone. Oh my god. You can't let Jane die, by the way? Really? How? Oh, if I didn't, if I looked away. Oh. Yeah, but then... Oh, I don't know. Jesus Christ. Cause they want to live as a gaslighter? It's okay, she's fine. Okay, Clementine is not a murderer. Okay, she kills zombies. She doesn't kill people. Alright, unless it's like self-defense. But then Kenny was a lost cause, okay. You know. Oh my god. It felt like I was watching CPT, Price versus General Shepherd. I have no idea who that is. No idea. No, Kenny was a father. He had a family. That is true, but like Kenny was like literally on edge. On edge. Everything was literally on edge. Captain Stash is called. Oh! Oh! I see. He had. Emphasis on had. Yeah, he had a family. Damn. It's okay. It's fine. It's fine. He'll be fine. He'll be fine. Kenny will be fine. I mean, he's with his family now, you know? God. That's so sad, oh, so sad. This ending's so sad. Does it always end sad like this? Oh god. He had people who care for him. But that was Clem's family. What Clementine lost all her family, you know? Basically, if you think about it. My week is over. Oh, no, it's Jover. It's Shenover. You took the rest of her family. You wrench of abomination. Okay. That's a bit of a reach. Negative 10 out of 10. Where's any of it? Thanks a lot, Shen. God damn. I love it. I love this game. Oh my god. I'm actually so surprised. I'm enjoying it a lot more than I thought I was. Oh my god. Well, it ain't a telltale game if it doesn't end sad. That is true. Yeah, you killed them all? Okay, some of their deaths were not on me, okay? Like Ben, I didn't kill Ben, okay? Ben died by falling down. Yeah. Oh, I didn't kill, what's her name? Sarah? She died by falling down. With my Glock, I want to shoot my eyeball to be. What do you mean? Okay, what does shooting your eyeball do to me, huh? Huh? What is it gonna do to me? Yeah, I feel like we should pull a French at the decapitation. What? What are you gonna steal, huh? Huh? My legs, my arm. And also 57 other people died? 57 other people? Is it actually 57? Okay, do you count all of those Russian people too? All of the enemies? Watch it kill the whole cast next? None is safe from Shen. They're very safe, very safe. Oh, can I go back previous menu? Oh god. I'm stealing your boobies so I can catfish people. I'll take your bone marrow and make soup out of it. Go to bone marrow soup. God, you know that sounds actually really good. Really good actually. Next stream is Sekiro, or you can start now. No. Sekiro is gonna be on April 12th, okay? April 12th. For sure. For sure. Okay, you can wait. Be patient. God. Okay, we did season 1. This is season 2. A new frontier. Who did I play here? Him? Okay, Clementine is not here, right? Who is he? Javier Garcia fights to keep his family together while Clementine searches. Oh! While Clementine searches for the last person she has left. Oh my god. Finish Kenna? Oh my god, I haven't touched that game since I first touched it. Mom. Literally like 2 years ago. Both on how long it takes Shen to die. Should I do a death counter for Sekiro? Should I? Play Sekiro now for you've killed Kenny. Next, Sekiro's gonna be on Saturday. For sure. Yes. All right. I'll set up a death counter. Oh my goodness. Oh god, I love this game. Heart rate monitor too? I don't have a heart rate monitor. I would if I can, but sadly I do not. I want to see where the fuck you're looking. If not, I'll pipe bomb your mailbox. That is a threat! Is that a threat to me? Damn, guys. Anyways, is this a good spot to end? Yeah, and oh, I'll marry you. Is that a good combat? Oh my goodness. No, it's not a good spot. What do you mean it's not a good spot? It's a good spot to end. You ever started Sekiro? Hey, I've already said it like 5 times. Sekiro is gonna be on Saturday, April 12th, 2025. Alright? Basketball played the whole chapter again? Oh god. Denied? You guys drive me nuts. Now this is a good spot to end. 3 hours? 3.5 hours? Pretty good. I thought it was gonna take me like longer to finish it, like the last 2 chapters. It went by pretty quick. Alright. Thank you everyone for coming. Wait, where's my BGM? You wanna get past level 2? Okay, if I play solo Reaper, I think I can make it like at least like level 8. Okay, no, not kidding. You know? Jesus. Wait, shit, we can try out the mods right now. The mods? The one with the legs too? I still haven't downloaded it though, Chaos. It's okay. Next stream, guys. Next stream, next time. Why not? It's the spirit. But like, literally, when I get like banned for it or in trouble, I feel like I'll get in trouble for it. No, don't do it, Mom. No. Read my rules. Kenny streamed it. He did actually. Ah. Nice song. Oh god, I love this song. Anyways, okay, guys. Thank you all for joining. Thank you all for coming by. Thank you all for lurking. Thank you everyone for coming to my stream. I hope you have a good night, good day, good evening. What's another thing I can say? Oh, make sure you lock your doors, lock your windows, lock your closet. Glad to see you make ass decisions. Hey, you know, it's the consequences of my own actions, okay? Goodbye, everyone. Pog, smell you later, John. What? What the heck? What Billy show was it down here, Lavender?